I'm often the king of hyperbole. It's my specialty. But without a doubt, I can say that this week's card at UFC 300 is the greatest UFC card of all time. Top to bottom, champions in the first fight. 3 different types of belts on the line. It really doesn't get more packed than this. They went all out for UFC 300, and it looks like it delivered. I cannot wait to break it down with you guys today, UFC 300 this weekend, this Saturday, and of course, the same group doing it. Myself, Austin Swaim, I work for FanDuel Research, and then my friend, the man, the myth, the long shot legend that is fully living up to that nickname recently, Maddie Tanner, at Maddie Betts on Twitter and social media. Maddie, I gotta ask you the same question that you're doing today, even though I kind of know the answer because it's UFC 300 week. How you doing?
I finally feel like I am living up to the way you introduced me on the show, because there was about a month period where I was not living up to being the long shot legend. But we hit a 46-1 parlay, we hit a 30-1, and then just late last year we hit the 60-1, which was crazy because that was my smallest payout because I only had $100 on that one. But I'm gonna be honest, bro. I think we've figured it out. I don't want to say that in like a bragging type of way because I could go ice cold the next 2 months. Like, it could definitely happen. But what I mean by that is if you want to hit parlays in the UFC, stop throwing 8-fighter money lines in your parlay. Pick 2 fighters to win by a specific outcome. Pick 3 fighters to win by a specific outcome, or maybe 1 money line and 2 fighters by an outcome. Like, I think we cracked the code, bro. I think that's how you win parlays in the UFC, because when you pick 6, 7, 8 fighters on the money line, there's always something that's going to happen there, right? Whether it's an injury or a bad decision, right? There's so many times that's going to get cracked. But I do think that's the code, is you do a 2-legger or a 3-legger with specific outcomes. I'm in love with this strategy, bro. I really am.
Yeah, and the thing that you are making work to your advantage for these props is that you're not being dumb. Like, you're not doing something totally random, like off the board, no tendencies. You're not going to the most likely outcome in the fight, which is the shortest odds in the specific method of victory. You're going to an alternate path. And we talked about that last week, the second leg of the parlay you had hit, John Matsumoto by submission. It wasn't the most likely outcome of that fight, but it was a path that was there. He showed that tendency on the regional scene. You trusted your gut, and it ended up working for you. By the way, I think I need to lead with our parlays off the schneid. We had Brendan Allen moneyline, Alex Morono moneyline, Ignacio Bahamondes by decision, or inside the distance, I should say. All of them cashed, plus 245, so the show parlay off the schneid. We'll look to keep it going at UFC 300, but I think without further ado, I just want to hear Maddie's thoughts on these 13 fights we have, because it is loaded top to bottom. I cannot believe the first fight of the night, usually reserved for bums, for debutantes, is Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Cody Garbrandt, 2 former UFC champions at 135. Interesting fight. This is Figueiredo's second appearance at 135 now, after he beat Rob Font late last year. And then the former champion Cody Garbrandt went through a lull, kind of starting to get some momentum. He's actually won 3 of his last 5. So Garbrandt's starting to get back on track. Big test against Figueiredo. First fight up on the card. What are you thinking here, my guy?
Yeah, bro. I mean, there's 3 women's fights on the card, and there could very well be a finish in all 3 of those women's fights. That's how good even the women's fights are. This is definitely by far the deepest card of all time, right? You can make an argument that the main card, maybe there's a few cards that are comparable to this, but there's nothing comparable as far as the depth of this card. I mean, you nailed it. When you have Deiveson versus Cody Garbrandt in the first fight, is just unbelievable. I'm actually really excited to hear your thoughts on this fight, because I have a pretty strong opinion. And I'm going to kind of give it away here, but I almost feel like there's a lot of trendy underdogs on this card that could end up being the wrong side. It's a gut feeling here when I just see the social media clips and I look at these matchups, and I like some underdogs too, but I'm getting some bad vibes on a few of these underdogs that people are just tossing around here, like publicly on social media. I feel like every video I see the same underdog pick. So we'll get into that, but let's dive into the first one, bro. I'm excited to get your opinion on this one.
Okay, so if you want me to go first, I will. I will say that I have the same sentiment as you, as where this is a very hand-picked card. These are results that, I don't want to say they've been manufactured, but these matchups were made strategically for a reason. That it's not always for the most competitive reason. So I tended to lean more toward favorites this week as well. Another thing I put out on Twitter this week, a lot of these guys, there are 18 fighters in 3-round fights, excluding Bo Nickal, who we'll get to later is the biggest favorite in UFC history as we get there. 15 of them have fought in a 5-round fight since the COVID break. So a lot of these guys are used to 5-round fights, and all of a sudden we're throwing Figueiredo and Cody Garbrandt into a 3-rounder and having that outcome. So my model surprisingly returned a lot of decisions, a lot of length this week, but that's wise because the tempo is very different. There's experience, there's skill, there's not really mismatches because these guys have experience. And so to Maddie's point, those trendy underdogs, they're probably underdogs for a reason. And the reason I want to throw this back to you, have you been seeing Garbrandt love on social media? Because I haven't really seen a lot of sentiment about this fight one way or another.
Yeah, I have. I think people like Cody in this fight. They talk about like his wrestling background, how he can stop the takedowns, and that he's the faster guy. And at this weight class, he can, maybe Deiveson's not as powerful as he is, in the lower weight class. So I've seen a little bit of it. This one, not as much as some of the other ones we'll talk about later, but I'll just spoil it. I love Deiveson Figueiredo in this fight. I love the money line price, and I want to talk to you about some of those outcomes. But I'm not convinced that Cody Garbrandt's chin is back. Like, I'm just not. It's like he gets, he finishes, who was it, Brian Kelleher recently, and what was the fight before that?
I think he took on Trevin Jones, went to a decision. Also, Rafael Assunção was the other knockout.
The Trevin Jones fight, even Trevin Jones isn't really, the highest level competition. And even in round 3, I feel like there was a small scare there, if I remember correctly. But my point is, are we really sold that Cody is, like, back here? Like, I don't know that I am, bro. I mean, I still have a lot of questions about the durability here. I want to hear your input on how legitimate the 80% takedown defense is, how you think the grappling defense is here, because I'm not ready to rule out Deiveson by submission. I do think the knockout's live just based on Cody's chin historically and what we've seen, but I want to get your 2 cents here.
Yeah, so I'm glad we're on the same page in this first fight because, like, a few points to your point about Deiveson Figueiredo here. Cody Garbrandt, I don't really trust some of the recent form because he's still 1-5 against fighters that have been ranked since the COVID break. That's his overall record. The only one, by the way, that was a win was Dominic Cruz to win the title back in the day in that big upset that was really surprising, right? That's the only time he's beaten a ranked guy. Deiveson Figueiredo is one now. And you look how these guys fought Rob Font. Deiveson Figueiredo landed 4 takedowns. He had just a -1 striking differential. I thought he clearly won the decision. It was a competitive fight one way or another. Cody Garbrandt, -113 striking differential. He got pieced apart by Rob Font, especially with the jab. The speed difference was apparent, right? I think that is why this line is as wide as it is because when you look how those two performed against each other, Garbrandt kind of defies logic. He's got a 60% striking defense, which is elite for this division, and then he's got a -0.85 striking success rate because his offense is so bad, and he can be inaccurate, he can be reckless, 40% striking accuracy isn't very good, and like, I think it's a giant red flag against a guy in Deiveson Figueiredo who's very aggressive hunting submissions. Cody's never even attempted one in UFC. I don't know what his jiu-jitsu looks like. He's never even really been in a particular matchup where it was tested either. Like, TJ Dillashaw was knocking him out. Pedro Munoz was knocking him out. So, like, I don't know how that would hold in this particular fight. I think Cody would put himself in danger going to a wrestling strategy. It certainly is there. My model projects Garbrandt for 2.23 takedowns in this fight, so there is a wrestling path. Well, that's just because of Figueiredo's poor defense, 58%. I don't know if Cody will do that, though, because it puts him right in the grasp of his jiu-jitsu. I think he's in danger everywhere here. We'll get into the props. It's a little difficult to decipher. It'll depend on the number, which we don't quite have yet at FanDuel, but we can go to shadysportsbook.com and start to get an idea. Oh, we do have props on FanDuel. They're out.
There's a nice one that's eyeing me up right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Deiveson Figueiredo plus 200 by knockout, plus 250 by points, plus 420 by submission. I am going to run some math real quick while you tell me what you're leaning here.
Please, bro, because I'm really looking at especially the early submissions.
Okay.
If we go back 2020, Deiveson submits Alex Perez round 1 in a guillotine choke.
Yep.
Fight before that, Benavidez round 1 submission in a rear naked choke. Then 2 fights before that, Tim Elliott round 1 guillotine choke. Like he has this in his disposal here, bro. And again, I wanted to get your opinion on Cody's grappling defense here, but I mean, that just looks like a leg to like a 2 or 3 outcome parlay that could pay big. Plus 420 on that.
So yeah, I mean, like, not to cut you off, but I just want to say that, like, the tendency's there, right? 1.6 submission attempts per 15. He was very aggressive hunting those at flyweight, so I totally understand your lean there. I have, I'm not showing a lot of value mathematically because I only have Figueiredo 58.4% to win. I think it's just because of the massive gap in level of competition. I have an input for level of competition. It's just not really this. Like, Figueiredo 2 fights ago was in flyweight title fights. Cody Garbrandt was fighting bums that have been cut or might be cut soon, right? So it's just hard to decipher. I've got points, the most likely outcome, plus 285, knockout plus 385, submission plus 760. But if you translate those to Figueiredo's money line, I think I would show value on submission if you assume his money line is indeed his correct win probability. So I don't hate that call at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough first fight as far as outcome. I think we wouldn't be surprised with really any outcome here.
No.
But I think that's why I lean the submission more than anything, just based off of the number.
So you said early Figueiredo round 1 sub plus 950, round 2 plus 1600. That is very intriguing. The thing is that I love going to the meaty underbelly of the unknown, and to me that is Garbrandt against a jiu-jitsu player. We really haven't seen that sort of matchup, but Rafael Assunção never attempted to take down against him, so, like, what measuring stick do we have? He could be a total fish out of water there, and Maddie, you look like a genius once again. I certainly think when you're building those two-leggers, Figueiredo by submission plus 420 could very much be a leg in one of those if you end up committing to it. So
Garbrandt gave up 2 takedowns in the Rob Font fight. He gave up 1 in the Trevin Jones fight. Kai Kara France just knocked him out in the first round. So
not a matchup for it either. Yeah.
What in the Brian Kelleher fight? Did Brian attempt any? I don't think he attempted.
I don't think he got to.
Yeah.
You know, you were on Kelleher by sub in that fight. I think we were talking along these same lines. Brian is a guy.
I had a long shot though on Kelleher by knockout, if I remember correctly. Just because, again, I was just playing Cody's chin and the number.
So, what do we think about inside the distance then? If we're not necessarily sure knockout or submission, double chance odds here, minus 110 inside the distance for Figgy. It's not bad.
It's a solid number. It really is. Yeah, I think that could make my card, truthfully.
Yeah, I'm looking right now what percentage of Figueiredo I have. I have Figueiredo 55.2% likely to win inside the distance of his win path. So if that's right in line, it's a little bit actually above value. So that would get a thumbs up from me too.
For sure.
It's cool. So we'll move on. I mean, we can't spend that is like a main event of an Apex card that we want to spend all that time on. We got 12 more of these things to go, so we're gonna have to hurry it up a little bit. And the next fight, a very special one because there's one guy that's been talking about UFC 300 for years. It is Jim Miller. He has done his part. He's on a 5-1 streak in UFC. More than deserved this spot at UFC 300. He's taken on Bobby Green in a battle of lightweight vets. Green a pretty heavy favorite here, minus 184. Seems a little rich when both of these guys have had some up and down results, at least since the COVID break, if you will. Maddie, I dove into this one last night, tweeted something out about it, but I'm curious whether it fell on deaf ears for you and you're thinking maybe the other side. I was wondering if this was one of the ones you teased me we might be opposite on.
Yeah, I think this is one of the ones that we're going to be opposite on here. But the way I look at this fight is all the data, all the things you're going to give me here, I'm going to throw all of them out, bro.
Yeah.
I get it. Bobby Green's going to be better everywhere, probably analytically, especially on the feet, right? He's probably faced the way better competition. I'm sure you're going to tell me that too. But the reality of it is 5 months ago, this dude was a part of maybe one of the worst late stoppages of UFC history where Jalen Turner literally beat the shit out of him, unconscious on the ground for a minute. No, that's number one. Number two, this is Jim fucking Miller, not Jim Miller. And if Bruce Buffer decides to say those 3 words, I'm live betting him for like $1 million on the spot. Like, he's won at UFC 100, he's won at UFC 200, and this is a winnable matchup at UFC 300.
Yeah.
He's a live underdog here. I think if you're going to back Bobby Green, you take Green by decision. I think if you're going to back Jim Miller, you take Jim Miller maybe inside the distance. But honestly, I'm looking at the Jim Miller by points at plus 460, and that's starting to entice me too if he's able to just land some of the bigger shots. I think Bobby Green's going to do what he does, but look what he did in the Drew Dober fight. He's piecing up Drew Dober for a round and a half, and then Drew Dober finds, I think, a big left hand. Obviously, Jim Miller isn't the same level of power puncher as Dober. He's not as explosive. We actually talked about this on the Show Me the Money podcast, which that's going to be posted in the next 45 minutes, 6:30 Eastern tonight. We're actually dropping it a day early on the Show Me the Money YouTube channel. Moicano dove into this fight big time, and he said that Jim Miller and Drew Dober is just a way different level of explosiveness and power. But Jim Miller can crack. I don't care what anyone says. Jim Miller can crack. I will say I don't love the one thing that makes me shy away a little bit on the Jim Miller side here is if that Alexander Hernandez fight never happened, I would feel a hell of a lot better of the Jim Miller side, truthfully. But I think he's live. I think the crowd's going to have him in it. I think that he's looking as good as ever at this age. I think he's a live underdog, and I think the fact that Bobby Green is coming off as bad as a beatdown, as that, not even a beatdown because it was a first round stoppage, but it was a really late stoppage, and I thought the dude was going to die on the floor. That's how bad the late stoppage was. Like, it was ugly. So I think that has to be taken into consideration here.
Yeah, absolutely. Attrition is a real thing. I talked to a guy, one of the sharpest bettors I know, and he is a numbers guy, so we level set on that. The attrition is a real thing with Bobby. Like you said, it's not just the knockout against Jalen Turner, the awful stoppage, one of the worst in UFC history. It's the Drew Dober fight as well. That's not Bobby's only knockout loss, and he's 37 now, right? Like, both of these guys have enough attrition that there is randomness baked into this fight, maybe more so than others. The point I made on Twitter, though, and I'm going to make it again here, I'm certainly going to have limited exposure to this fight. I put out a parlay on the Home of Fight Discord. You should really subscribe there. And plug in that guy again for Maddie. Not just my bets for free, Maddie's entire card. We got Hey Jive on there. We got Clint McLean. So everybody that you could possibly want some free or premium picks from, it's right there in the Home of Fight Discord. I parlayed Green in this spot because I realized that his money line, it might be a good value. Just because you think Bobby Green's probably at his lowest point in terms of value after the Turner knockout because of the attrition. Jim Miller's on a 5-1 skid, but I look at the level of competition here, man. I can't get past it. I couldn't pull the trigger on Miller. My sharp friend, all over Miller. You like Miller. My model, by the way, likes Jim Miller in this fight for 47% win probability, so obviously good against his money line number. I can't do it. When Bobby Green, 7-5 since the COVID break, all 5 of those losses to fighters that have been ranked at some point since that COVID break. Jim Miller, he has 5 wins, but they're against guys who are 5-11 against everyone else. They're 5-16 overall, including the losses to Jim. They're bad fighters. Eric Gonzalez, Jesse Butler. I think Jim's best win. I don't know if Jim's best win.
The Jesse Butler fight was hilarious. That was like the fishiest bet of all time. Like, people couldn't understand the inside the distance number on that fight. They were like, what? And I fucking shied away from it. I'm like, this is the weirdest shit I've ever seen. Yeah. And he starches him in the first 23 seconds. Yeah. But like, look at Jim Miller. Not to interrupt you, but look at Jim Miller's the 5-1 stretch. Yeah. If that Alexander Hernandez fight never happened, it would have been a 5-0 stretch. And they're all finishes. I know. I'd just still be very skeptical. I'm like, one of the things that I try to pride myself in is the level of competition equivalent. Like, I'm working on ego rankings and things like that. Like, my concern is, I remember being on Jim Miller against Joe Selecki, and he was stuck in bottom position. Different type of matchup. Vince Pichel didn't go his way. These all since the COVID break. I just wonder if Jim is now approaching a level that maybe he doesn't necessarily belong to, because Bobby, I'm not even talking about the Grant Dawson knockout. It was a little bit fluky. Like, I don't consider that like a domination of a guy with a ranked caliber. I look at the Tony Ferguson fight. I got bad news for everybody listening to this podcast. I think Tony Ferguson would mop Jim Miller at this point, and that's like where my stance on this fight comes from. I think Tony could have been the opponent here that would have made for a heck of like a pick'em fight. I feel like Tony would win that fight, and Bobby, of course, absolutely destroyed Tony throughout until a third-round submission. I could get into the Green striking peripherals. Of course, they're stellar. Plus 2.40 striking success rate, adds some wrestling. Really good takedown defense, 74%, which I think is a critical thing in this matchup with Jim and his crafty submission game.
I can't do it. Like, I feel like I'm getting Bobby at a very low point because of the last fight, and then I get Jim at one of his highest points when at 40 years old, I think he's coasted a little bit on his level of competition, but, like, would it stun me at all? I might play Jim Miller, like, early knockout as a hedge here, just because of the attrition aspect that you're saying, and then I just hedge out my 2-unit parlay, so, yeah,
I think if you go Jim Miller inside the distance, I'd like 2-3 much better. He's not really finishing anyone of caliber in the first round.
Okay.
Like, it's like, you know, I mean, Cowboy Cerrone, even a washed Cowboy Cerrone, it was round 2. The Gabriel fight prior, round 3, neck crank.
Yep.
Eric Gonzalez, round 2, KO. I mean, Roosevelt Roberts, round 1 submission, but Clay Guida, he got a round 1 sub.
Yep.
I think Bobby Green's takedown defense will hold up, especially early, though, against him. I think for Jim to get the takedowns, like, he would have to mix in some good striking attempts to then, you know, get those takedowns. But,
yeah.
Bro, but tell me this, though. Jim Miller inside the distance, plus 270, that still seems like a good number against a guy that is getting finished and is coming off of a bad stoppage. I still like that number, bro. It's hard for that not to make my card.
My model loves it, by the way, Maddie. I've got it at plus 170, so it sees really good value there on Miller inside the distance. I actually like Bobby Green by points in this fight. Like, I feel like Bobby is going to be a little bit less aggressive than normal given what happened against Turner. A lot of mutual respect on both sides for both of these guys. Like, no one wants to see Jim Miller or Bobby Green face planted in 30 seconds on such a special card, right? Like, we'd like to see some length, the back and forth, good type of like fight of the night type of fight. I tend to lean length here, which I do think favors Bobby over Jim, but like, I would not blame anyone for playing Miller inside the distance because it's what he's been doing because of the attrition. Like, I totally understand that side whatsoever. I think it's a very clear decision to me. Bobby points or Jim inside the distance, and wherever you fall on that line, I don't think it's a bad side. So I don't really disagree with Maddie as much as I've taken a different stand, and it's probably going to burn me because I'm betting on chins, and we know how that goes. So we'll move on here. Next fight at women's strawweight. This absolutely could be an Apex main event between Jessica Andrade, Marina Rodriguez. Didn't we just have a couple of chick main events that were not necessarily as good as this one between top 5 strawweights? Both of them have been in main events. Jessica Andrade is a slight favorite here, minus 136 when I pulled earlier this afternoon. I've already got placed a bet on this fight, gave it out in the Home of Fight Discord. Curious if Maddie is with me or he might be against me here.
I think I'm against you again, bro.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think this number's getting wider, right? Andrade's up to minus 142.
Okay, so it's steaming a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the more Marina Rodriguez becomes an underdog, the more I like her. Mm-hmm. I just look at it as like this, like Andrade. She has some great wins, right? Like, but like Amanda Lemos, that round 1 standing arm triangle was crazy.
Fluky.
But I think Amanda Lemos is way better than her. I really do. I think Amanda Lemos is the better fighter. The Lauren Murphy.
What?
I think Amanda Lemos is better, bro. I really do. Andrade to me is so reckless. We saw in the Jan fight, you know, chin in the air, marching forward, gets starched. Marina Rodriguez, the beatdown she put on in her last fight against Michelle Waterson-Gomez, like, I get it. She's not high level, but she's a good striker, and she put a beat down on her on the feet. Compared to Jessica Andrade's last fight, I know Mackenzie Dern is high level, but
her striking
matchup is 53-49.
Yeah,
she found the chin. Like, I just think Marina Rodriguez is going to be more technical, sharper on the feet. I know Andrade has the equalizer in power. But I can't get out of my head how good Marina Rodriguez looked in her last fight. And for her to be the underdog here. And then you go back and look at the losses.
Yeah.
Verna, who's as durable as it gets in women's MMA, in my opinion.
Yep.
Is what it is, right? You couldn't finish her. It was a close fight. It was a unanimous decision, but you actually outstruck her.
Yeah.
And then again, I'm high on Amanda Lemos. You know, she loses that fight in round 3. And then before that, a 4-0 stretch. Amanda Hebos, a round 2 knockout. You know, obviously the Michelle Waterson-Gomez first fight. Mackenzie Dern, she wasn't able to get her out of there, but she outstruck her. I actually think this is a fight where Marina could win on the scorecards.
Okay.
Which is plus 220. That's crazy enough the shortest outcome, or the most likely outcome, even though she's the underdog.
Okay.
Or the KO's plus 500, which obviously I love that number when Andrade is just reckless. But I still need to decide what I'm doing with this fight. It's definitely not one of my most confident plays on the card, not even close.
Yeah.
I think Andrade is good, but I just think she could play into the crowd here, get a little crazy. And I think Marina's last fight to me was just super impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the risk of Maddie and I, women's strawweight, I hate this division because, like, we got Verna hanging out there, really hasn't had a super marquee main event fight. They gave Carla Esparza 2 title shots. Like, I feel like they don't test this division properly and, like, don't matchmake it properly. I am not only of the opinion Andrade is better than Lemos. I think there's a possibility in a world where she's better than Weili Zhang. And when those two met, Weili got a 42-second knockout in China. I would like to see that fight run back because, like, I'll link it in my article that comes out on Friday. Andrade came out and said, like, I fought 5 times last year because I was trying to pay my divorce bills. Like, she was taking all these short notice fights. The Tatiana Suarez fight was a good example of that. Really outclassed bell to bell, right? Then got in a longer camp. Obviously, the Mackenzie Dern, her striking is awful. I totally agree with you. You and I both loved Andrade in that spot. And like, I thought I had her favored in that spot. I felt really good about it. This one is a much harder matchup than Mackenzie Dern for Andrade, but I still feel good about her. My model's got her at minus 155. I think on terms of volume, Andrade puts a little bit more out there. I would say Marina's a little bit more defensively responsible. Like, I think this would be a very competitive striking match. The thing is that Andrade does have really explosive, efficient wrestling, 54% takedown accuracy. She's maybe been a little hesitant to use it in some of these recent matchups where you look at a Mackenzie Dern, you look at a Tatiana Suarez, you look at Erin Blanchfield as a good example in the flyweight main event. Like, that's going right into those ladies' hands. The fight that does give me trepidation is the Yan Xiaonan KO, right? Because Marina's got power. She's very efficient. I think Marina's a better striker than Yan is, which we'll get to Yan later in this card in the co-main event. But I feel like her well-roundedness here carries her. The thing is, if you like Marina by points, I like Andrade by points. That's the prop I'm going to play here. I've got it at 39.5% of the time. So I love plus 240 as a number. I basically have it at plus 150. So I'll play Andrade by points. It sounds like we may end up going fight goes the distance or over 2.5 rounds as a potential parlay piece here that we could jot down on the short list. But I don't have a ton of confidence in the fight
we
here.
Just stay away from this fight in our parlay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I legitimately wouldn't be surprised by a single outcome in this fight. The only thing I hate that you said is that she could be better than Weili. I couldn't disagree with that more. I think Weili's better everywhere. Like, maybe Andrade has some slicker submissions, maybe, but I think Weili is. That's just because I think so highly of Weili.
Sure.
Who do you like in a Weili Tatiana Suarez pick'em though? I'm torn on that. I kind of think Weili might piece her up on the feet.
Yeah, I think I would go Weili just because of the striking advantage. I think she'd be able to stuff enough of the take. Andrade actually had some success stuffing takedowns against Tatiana, and like
I was betting that one. I had a massive bet on Tatiana inside the distance. I was like, what am I missing? Yeah, and then early on it was a little sweaty.
Yeah. By the way, I don't think power is a huge factor in this fight one way or another. Both knockdown rates below 0.5%. Like, Andrade just got a bunch of them against Mackenzie Dern, but she really doesn't have a lot of power, like, further into her resume. She did knock down Lauren Murphy in over 200 strikes. So, I feel the power is not as huge of a factor as some might say. It's kind of boring. I've got this fight 66% to go the distance. It may not even show value against the odds on FanDuel, but interesting. We're split here. I think it is a close one, but Maddie, by the way, is taking one of my favorite processes. I love just taking women's strawweight, flyweight underdogs by decision. You usually get north of 2-1, and it's usually a tight, competitive fight that can go one way or another with the judges. So Maddie borrowing one of my favorite. Maddie is agreeing with my model on Jim Miller. He's borrowing one of my favorite maybe Maddie's doing this better than I am. And by the way, the parlays speak to that. But we'll move on here because I'm really excited to talk about this. I really love Renato Moicano, listening to his podcast with Maddie, so it's kind of hard to be objective and put him aside. He's always been one of my favorite fighters, but so is Jalin Turner. That's the dilemma that this stacked card brings to us. Turner a minus 280 favorite here. huge fight at lightweight, like one of these guys soaring toward the top 10 if they can get through it. It's different stylistic wrinkles here. I could listen to an argument on both sides, so I'm hoping Maddie has a specific lean, and then we can kind of chew on it together.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to go against my guy here. Now, I will say Moicano is the epitome of honesty. Like, he made a joke on the show that he picks against his teammates and friends, and I was like, well, how do you tell them? He's like, I tell my friends when they're going to lose. And I was like, well, how do you go about doing that? He's like, I don't. I just say on my YouTube channel. And it was hilarious. So Moicano would want me or anyone to be honest, right, on who they think is going to win.
Yep.
I'm backing him regardless of who I think is going to win. But number two, and more importantly, I think he genuinely has a path to victory.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is we saw Garbrandt exploit that against Jalin Turner. Moicano is 2-0 against Southpaws, and Jalin Turner has lost every single time it's gone the distance in his UFC career. I believe that's 4 times.
Okay.
I need to take a look here. I do think that Moicano is live on the submission. I do think he's live on the scorecards as well, if he's able to get enough control time and enough damage on the ground. I think he has got to be very cautious early in the fight, though, in the first round especially. But he's been good. If you look in the Drew Dober fight, when he gets into trouble, he finds ways to escape and get out of it. And even in the fights that he's been finished, like, for example, the Rafael Fiziev fight, right?
Yep.
That was just a sick combination, and he still recovered. I think it was like a half a second to a second quick of a stoppage there, maybe a little early of a stoppage. You can make the argument. But that's as good as a striker you're going to see in that division, I think, as far as like pure striking and slick combinations. But since that fight, submission win, decision loss to RDA, submission win, decision win against Drew Dober. So he's on a run here. He's on a run. I will say he is genuinely as confident as ever. It feels like even at 34, he's in his prime. But I get it. Jalin Turner is a difficult opponent. So it's tough. I feel like if you're going to take Turner here, you go inside the distance, though.
Yeah.
I think you take, Moicano, you look at a double chance submission decision prop, which I want to see what that number's at right now.
Perfect transition, Maddie, because I was going to tell you my model's got Moicano sub-decision at plus 165. It is plus 270, or plus 220, excuse me, on FanDuel. So it's a good number if you like Moicano. This is, again, one of those fights that really puts me in a hairy spot where my model has a pretty convincing result. It likes Jalin Turner to win about 61% of the time, but that's not showing value against this money line. So it's a little difficult for me to be like, okay, well, I'm going to bet this guy, but I don't really think it's going to win, and it's like a value proposition type of thing. I think this is an especially bad matchup for Renato, and that bums me out because I think he's an incredible, well-rounded guy. The problem for me is he's 0-2 inside the UFC rankings, and now here's Jalin Turner again. 75% takedown defense profiles to be an issue. He didn't have like overwhelming success against Drew Dober's 56% takedown defense. He went 3 of 6. It was not a bad result at all, but it wasn't like a clean sweep easy. And I honestly thought Moicano maybe looked a step slower in that fight. And if he comes out and wins, he can tell me to fuck myself, and I'll deserve it because I had Moicano. I actually had two and a half units on Moicano in that fight. It was a little sweaty for my liking, especially not doing a ton of damage on the ground. I think Turner, with his explosiveness, with his length, his power, 1.36% knockdown rate, is a significantly better striker than Renato. And Renato's going to need takedowns in this fight in order to win it. That's why I think the sub-decision path makes a lot of sense. The one thing that is the true kryptonite of why I can't pick Renato to win, just a 0.16% knockdown rate, haven't seen a ton of power. I really think Jalin Turner is most vulnerable with some of his striking defense, especially analytically, 41%. I don't think his head defense is great. I certainly think he's a leg kick chop waiting to happen with the way he plants hard on his front leg. Haven't seen it torn up yet, but it is an outcome that's out there. Maybe Moicano employs that here. I like Jalin to win this fight. I've already parlayed him. I got a better number than minus 280. I got minus 200. So what is Jalin sitting at FanDuel right now? He's minus 265. So Moicano's taken on a little bit of money since the last time I pulled it.
Yeah, he was up to 210.
Yeah,
it went down some.
Yeah, I got a better number on Turner that I feel better about at minus 200, but like still at minus 265.
That's a massive difference.
Yeah, like, well, that means I got closing line value, which means my bet's already dead on arrival. So, I mean, like, these guys are two skilled guys. I will say, I feel like Turner is adept on the ground, like, he knows what he's doing. I don't think if Moicano wasn't able to submit Dober, some of the guys that Moicano's been able to submit, like an Alexander Hernandez, like a Jai Herbert, they're bad grapplers. I don't feel that way about Jalin, even though acknowledging that path is still there for Renato. My official pick is Turner by knockout. I've got it at 37.2% of the time, so that's plus 170. Turner by KO coming back at minus 115. So I can't really bet that particular outcome if I like go through the model perspective.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a spot where I just stick to my where I stick to the decent number I got in my parlay and don't end up adding a ton of props.
Turner by decision at plus 700 is a crazy number.
Yeah, let me take a look. This would be a wild outcome, but I've actually got Turner because of his submission volume at 15.2%.
Plus 750 on FanDuel.
It's plus 750, so I'm actually showing more value on submission than I am knockout, which would be quite the result.
The knockout number sucks. Minus 115. It's a trap. They're just taking your money on that one because I'm telling you, Moicano seems to, again, outside of that, I still believe that Rafael Fiziev fight, which I actually believe that Fiziev is a worse matchup for Moicano than Turner because you got the low center of gravity, you got the really quick and powerful hands.
Sure.
Turner, he can get single legs on. He can get, we've seen, look at the guys Turner's lost to. Matt Frevola, 4 takedowns. Garbrandt, 4 takedowns.
Yep.
I think this is a tailor-made matchup for Moicano, as crazy as that sounds. He's got to stay away from the power. He's got to be careful coming in early.
Yeah.
But I think that he's a good underdog here, bias aside. So I like the decision / submission double chance. And I think his submission abilities are better than Frevola and Garbrandt once the fight is on the ground. So I wouldn't rule that out either. I'll tell you one thing. If he fucking goes out, takes Jalin Turner down and submits him, Moicano's about to be a star, bro.
Yeah, especially when he hops on the mic at UFC 300 because God knows what's going to happen there. But,
100%.
I mean, that's why it's so hard. I had this dilemma with Gilbert. I thought Jack Della Maddalena was going to win, but I wanted to root for Gilbert. So I had this dilemma back at the last UFC pay-per-view as well. I think I found my bet. I've got Turner submission decision plus 325. It's plus 360 on FanDuel. I prefer that to the crappy knockout number if I'm going to add a prop here. But, again, I'm showing more value on Moicano to win than his money line implies, so it's going to be tough, and I don't really want Renato to. And by the way, I want to get your take on this. I feel like Renato, if you ever go to Walmart, you see like the great value brand of something sitting next to the name brand. I feel like Renato is great value brand Charles Oliveira. I feel like he can do a lot of the same stuff, really dangerous submissions, super aggressive on the feet. I actually think he's way better defensively than Charles, but that's my official comp. And by the way, he moved from 145 to 155, just like Charles did. So that's my official comp. He probably wouldn't appreciate me calling him Walmart brand Charles Oliveira, but
no comment on my behalf.
So we'll move on here. Next fight up on the card, another banger at featherweight. My Diego Lopes taking on Sodiq Yusuff. This is primetime Diego's chance to join the UFC rankings. God, I wrote in my article on FanDuel Research, if there was a UFC Rookie of the Year award, Diego Lopes probably won it last year, right? Vloya performance, ended up getting a couple of finishes within the first couple minutes after that. And Sodiq Yusuff coming off a disappointing main event loss against Edson Barboza, where had Barboza hurt early, 10-8 first round, maybe depleted the gas tank, didn't quite have anything left to compete in the rest of that fight. Barboza squeaked away. So Sodiq Yusuff looking for a big bounce back here. Decently close betting line with Lopes. A minus 146 favorite, Maddie. Where are you leaning in this fight?
You know what's funny is I think Sodiq Yusuff's really, really good.
Yeah.
I think the Barboza fight, did he get injured early? He said something happened because he looked so good early on. And he should have got Barboza out of there, and then he was a different fighter. I remember him tweeting or something where he was injured during the fight, but that was back in October of last year.
Yeah.
The problem I have with this fight is I just think Diego Lopes is a star in the making. I think he's so good, so excited, really good for the UFC. And what's interesting is his knockout and KO prop in this fight are the same number. They're both plus 320.
Really?
And,
okay.
Yeah, and bro, even in the Masvidal Evloev fight, he almost submitted him on short notice. You know, and he's as good as a guy as there is in the division. Like my buddy that has trained with him and Topuria said he's better. That dude's better than Topuria, which I think now we have trouble believing. But my point is he's good, right? And he almost finished him. What are your thoughts on Sodiq's like takedown defense and grappling in general here? Because it's hard to just not auto bet Lopes by sub.
Yeah, I mean, like, the interesting thing is that Lopes doesn't have a UFC takedown attempt yet. So, like, is he more of a club and sub, stand and bang type of guy? What does his wrestling look like? We really haven't seen it yet. Like, he spent a lot of his contender series in bottom position against Joe Anderson Brito. Then he spent a lot of the Evloev fight in bottom position. Gavin Tucker took him down, and that's how he got the submission off his back. I wonder if Sodiq Yusuff would even try a takedown to put himself in that position. Would Diego Lopes jump guard? Like, Diego Lopes is a wild man, and that's what makes him so hard to predict. Like, I came on here in January, remember our first show of the year, I have a Diego Lopes 45-1 ticket on him to be the featherweight champion at the end of the year. I wish I could cash it out, because I don't know if I'd take him over any Evloev, over a Topuria, whoever it might be, but I just saw the star power, and this is one of those steps that we saw could take place. Same thing with Benoit Saint Denis, even though he didn't come through against Dustin Poirier. But I like Sodiq Yusuff here. I modeled this out. I've got him at minus 115. I just feel like Lopes has some concerns in his profile. 37% striking defense. Hasn't played very much mind to head striking defense so far. 42% takedown defense. Super willing to play off his back. Like, there will be a level where Diego Lopes, who I loved in his first two fights, thought he was just a better athlete in general than Gavin Tucker. So I came on here and I said, I think he's going to chin Pat Sabatini in the first round because, Sabatini has those issues standing
at
distance.
We both had a knockout on that one.
We did, yeah. And I just feel Sodiq is much more durable, 54% striking defense, only 2 knockdowns seeded and over 500 significant strikes attempted or something at this point. Only 2 losses to Edson Barboza and Arnold Allen. I just feel like he's the more well-known, tested commodity. Lopes, to me, is going to be in everybody's type of parlay, minus 150. He's a stud. I really like him too, and I think he's a lot of fun to watch, but I think skill for skill, winning minutes in this fight, Sodiq Yusuff is the side that I would back, and I actually am waiting, because, this line hasn't budged on FanDuel. It's kind of stayed right here as well. I'm hoping more money comes in on Lopes so I can get a better number. I actually got burned doing this in a fight that we'll talk about later. So I'm watching Yusuff because I want to bet him in this spot. I just want to make sure I get the best of the number there as well. Like, you and I really liked Sodiq going into that Barboza fight. Again, these guys are such high-level MMA fighters. All of these fights on both sides. I'm not really... I can't strongly argue against Diego Lopes making it happen again.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'll tell you one thing. I hate Diego Lopes's money line. I would not touch that.
Yeah.
I think it's much closer to a pick'em fight. I think really this is just a classic swing I'll take at an outcome prop here versus touching his money line, though.
Yeah.
I will say, did you feel like there were moments where Barboza had really hurt Sodiq on the feet, though?
He dropped him in the third round, so yeah, I felt that was fatigue related. Like, when those guys were fresh, I feel like he emptied the tank. It was a little bit of an adrenaline dump as I was watching. I was texting you during that fight. I thought Sodiq was not himself the rest of that fight, whether that's better or worse. And this is only a 3-rounder, so I really don't have any concerns about cardio for either of these guys. I'll tell you the worst bet on the board. Diego Lopes by points plus 500. Don't even touch it. Guy plays off his back. Not a super efficient striker. My model has him 0% likely to win by decision based on UFC tendencies, because not looking good in the distance striking differential, not looking good in the takedown department. Like, I don't know how Lopes wins minutes. I think Maddie's right. You want to take a stab either inside the distance or one of the two methods here.
Yeah, inside the distance is only plus 115, though. That's tough against a guy in Sodiq who's pretty adorable.
That's kind of weird. I feel like if you like Lopes, I have Lopes at exactly plus 115. I've got his inside the distance because I said he's got no decision equity, plus 115. So I'm right in line with odds makers there. Wow. It's weird they're giving him decision equity because I don't see it. Like, I think we saw against Joe Anderson Brito how that looked, is that he's just a little too willing to play off his back.
Sodiq Yusuff, to me, is like adorable guy on the feet. Like,
Me too.
I think the fact that the submission and KO prop is the same number. If you had to bet one of the two, which one are you taking?
Easy decision. I've got sub at 35.5%, knockout at 12.5%. So easy.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Even if he hurts him on the feet, to me it's a club and sub written all over it. Because Yusuff's, I don't think a guy that's going to go out on one shot.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
How old is Sodiq Yusuff?
He is 30, which is my model's analytical prime, like the best.
And he hasn't taken a ton of damage in his career.
By the way, I've got Lopes sub at plus 180, so I'm actually showing betting value on that within the model. Wow,
it has to be an auto bet for me, bro. I'm definitely going to be on the submission prop on my card. That number is just too good. Yeah, it's too good to not take it. If he goes out and submits him, he's a star. He enters the rankings. I mean,
I might play Yusuff's money line and hedge out with round 2-3 sub. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
I mean, would you? Well, were you thinking more of a 2-3 or a 1-2 type of setup? I guess would be my question.
Generally, I like subs early with they're drier and everything versus as the fight goes slippery and sweaty. But I will say in this fight, I definitely prefer 2-3 over 1-2 because I just think Sodiq's going to be smart early on, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I guess both of Lopez's finishes have been in round 1.
Yep.
But he's been dangerous late in fights though too. So
yeah. And the thing is, we talk all the time. I feel like we bet too many submissions because, again, 19% of UFC fights decided by decision. I've tried to make this better into my model, but when Lopez is such a voluminous attempter of them, 5.3 attempts per 15 minutes, dude's throwing out 5 per fight. It's a way different conversation as far as tendencies is concerned. So, Maddie, if you're going sub there, it gets my stamp of approval as well as the models, even though I think Yusuff is a better value to win. So, I mean, both of us could take value bets there, and we'd see which one ended up cashing. So we'll move forward here. A fight that I certainly think it's my least favorite on the card to talk about from a betting perspective. I find the Nickal one fascinating for a lot of different reasons, and you've already bet it. But Kayla Harrison taking on Holly Holm. This is Kayla Harrison's UFC debut, really a star in women's MMA that's existed outside of UFC for several years now with PFL. We knew Kayla Harrison was probably on a fast track for a big fight with a cyborg, with a Amanda Nunes. Now it's Holly Holm, which isn't quite as big as you might have thought, nor would Raquel Pennington next be, but she's going to try to make 135 here for the first time in her pro MMA career. Little variance there. She's a minus 460 favorite over the 42-year-old Holly Holm. This fight gives me the heebie-jeebies, man. I am wondering if you got a particular lean here.
Oh my god. Yeah, so I just wish we had the Holly Holm from at least 2 or 3 years ago here.
Sure.
Because then it's a no-brainer dog bet for me.
Yeah.
But the Mayra Bueno Silva fight was ugly, bro. I didn't think she looked good. I think she looked slow.
Yep.
I think Kayla Harrison can maybe get a round 1 finish here.
Yeah.
But if she doesn't, that's where it gets interesting. Part of me wants to play Holly Holm round 2-3 KO, just because the number's going to be crazy. I got to look at it. Hold on. So
let me add this in because I found it earlier today. Holm's last knockout came in June of 2017. I had just graduated college the last time Holly Holm scored. It was over Betch Correa back in 2017. Kayla Harrison plus 350 to win round 1, plus 600 to win round 2. She has 11 round 1-2 finishes in her career. A lot of early ones. Now, the level of competition is the thing, right? Kayla Harrison's last fight was against Aspen Ladd. UFC flameout, not super special, right? Goes the distance. I will say that doesn't really do a credit because Harrison was in control of every single second of that fight. It was a dominant decision where Ladd really didn't take any chances and didn't allow. It was a little bit like Almeida Lewis. I say Jalin Almeida went to a decision with Lewis. It doesn't really tell the story of how dominant it was, right? That was Harrison's last fight. But the thing that concerns me is she lost to Larissa Pacheco on points. Can Holly Holm stuff takedowns? Can she do more with striking offense as MMA criteria evolves? I see Holly Holm at points plus 550. I would play that instead of Holly's money line because I don't think she's got finishing equity. She's not submitting a 2-time judo gold medalist, in my opinion. I think that's how you play Holly if you want to play her. But honestly, plus 350 and plus 600 for Harrison round 1-2. really early when I feel like Harrison is a much better grappler than Mayra Buena Silva, who ended up grabbing the neck in the second round there. Like,
Do you think her submission ability is better?
Yeah, Harrison's got 6 round 1 pro subs. Let me check the total number here. I looked it up earlier. This is the last fight I previewed, like, for my article because I was avoiding it at all costs. But yeah, so she's got 5 subs in the first round, another 1 in the second round. So, and you look at the submission types, which, by the way, you did last week with John Matsumoto. You got an armbar, key lock. You know, like there is arm triangle, so there's like some diversity within the submissions as well. I think Kayla is an elite ground fighter, and if she makes 135, she looks like she's in a different type of shape, but God, she is going to be so much bigger and stronger than a lot of these natural bantamweights, because she's been dominating at 155, and now all of a sudden down at 135, she's going to be huge for this weight class.
Yeah. You know, I'm looking at Aspen Ladd's Tapology, and like the losses are actually good losses though.
Yeah, Norma Dumont's in there, right?
Or Carl Pennington, Jermaine, they're good.
Like losses. Aspen's okay. Like, I mean, I'm glad I have that measuring stick. Aspen's okay, right? So the problem with you, I think it's the declining Holly Holm form is the problem for me. Is that you remember the Ketlin Vieira Holm fight where all she could do is push her up against the cage, ended up losing a decision there against Vieira's wishes because she just wasn't going forward with offense. I
think she fell off a cliff after the Irene Aldana decision.
Yes,
in 2020.
agreed. And she's been super inactive since then. Only 3 fights since 2020.
Right.
So, like, you know, it's like, this is a big fight. It's a big money fight. Like, obviously there's skill and appeal here, but I can't remember. I'm old enough now to remember Miesha Tate, 5th round rear naked choke, ended up getting her with grappling. Valentina dominated Holly in that regard. I looked back at Holly's resume. She really hasn't fought a lot of, like, these one-dimensional grapplers since then. Like, Aldana prefers to strike. Rocky Pennington is a mixed martial artist. Amanda Nunes head kicked her before we could see it. So it's like, it's hard to get a sample on what Holly looks like in this particular matchup. She did okay with Ronda Rousey back in the day, but that was a long time ago at this point, you know?
Right, yeah.
So,
it's about a pick'em for the fight to go the distance, yes or no? What's your take?
I lean no. I think Harrison's going to finish her. I like Kayla. You know, Kayla's 33. She's in her athletic prime. Holly's been finished now. You know, she was finished by Mayra Buena. I don't think she's coming into this fight in great form. Like, it's appropriately a coin flip, but my lean would be toward violence, which I know you should automatically shut me out when I say that in women's MMA fights, because whenever we take the under.
Now, I think I like Harrison by sub.
Yeah.
I just think Holly Holm, historically, outside of Amanda Nunes, she's not getting knocked out by anybody.
Yes. And it would be ground and pound, right? Like Kayla is a bad striker. I think she like there are other girls in this 135 division that are much better strikers than her. It's just she has excellent judo. Like that. What's so weird about this matchup is Holly has kind of turned into the judo player in this division recently. She did that to Yana Santos, amassed over 12 minutes of control time or whatever it was. Now all of a sudden here comes a real test for that. And if Holly's able to stuff these takedowns, it could get really ugly in that direction. I might end up playing Harrison. I might end up playing Harrison 1, Harrison 2, and Holm decision here, all of them north of plus 350. But I don't really want a ton of exposure to like a specific outcome here.
Holly Holm, round 2 knockout 30-1. Round 3 knockout 33-1. Bro, Kayla Harrison, round 1 sub plus 650, round 2 plus 1,000. I kind of just want to put all 4 of those on my card.
Yeah. I think that's the way to play this fight. It sounds like you and I are in agreement, like darts at a specific angle rather than going crazy at Kayla Harrison's money line, rather than, taking Holly on the money line, rather than betting this fight's total. I would rather take a specific stance like that, and I think you're with me.
Yeah.
So, all right. Yeah, let's not talk about this. We got enough good fights to talk about. Let's move on here. Yeah. Aljamain Sterling, Calvin Kattar. How about this banger at featherweight? The 145-pound debut for Aljo after being on the wrong end of Sean O'Malley's breakout moment to lose his bantamweight title. We knew the 145 move was coming. Kattar, a very interesting first opponent at this point. I was stunned with my model's verdict here. You and I briefly, we try to not talk to each other, but it's UFC 300 week. We are so jazzed for this card. You and I somewhat on the same page here. Why don't you go ahead and tell the audience what you're thinking on this fight?
I like Aljo, but I don't like minus 170.
Yeah, it's a tough number.
It's climbed, right?
Yep. Aljo was available close to a pick'em maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah. Now he's started to steam, especially as we've gotten toward fight week. Another reason why those look-ahead lines could be really valuable.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy. Aljo by sub right now on FanDuel is 5-1. I mean, that's ridiculous. You know, that's absolutely ridiculous. Aljo by decision is the most likely outcome. I think it's plus 140. Aljo by points. Aljo is talking about how, you know, he mentioned that, like, hey, if he just got knocked out and now he's going up against a guy that has power, you know, is he going to get knocked out again? And his answer, his response to that was, you can't knock out what you can't hit, right? Mm-hmm. And I do think that is what we're going to see from Aljo here. I think the question is, does he find the back and get a sub? You know, the 91% takedown defense by Calvin Kattar is impressive, but how tested is that, right?
Yep.
You know, he fought Moicano back in 2018. Moicano won by decision.
Yep.
You know, the Max Holloway fight was brutal. He got 445 significant strikes, took a long break after that one, a full year off until his next fight. And then he looked solid in the Giga fight, but I don't know. He went the full distance with Josh Emmett.
Yep. Went the full distance with Ige.
It's just tough. You know, part of me thinks that Aljo, with how unorthodox he is, could find a backpack on the feet.
Ooh, like, interesting. Yeah.
Backpack standing, like finds the back, jumps on top.
Yeah.
And then maybe finds the sub, like without even getting a takedown. But I'm really struggling with this one. I'll defer to you here.
Yeah, dude, interesting that, like, I like mentally when I picture this fight am on the same page, but my model returned to, and this is what I love about my model, is it makes me think. Aljamain Sterling's submission tendencies aren't really there. He doesn't have a submission in his last 5 fights. The TJ Dillashaw win, dominant ground victory. It was ground and pound. The I mean, I guess Petr Yan was a DQ, so that doesn't kind of match. But Aljo had more submissions earlier in his career. He also had a knockout mixed in. My model's actually more keen on a ground and pound here. I got 18.1% by knockout, 7.3% by submission, because Aljo just doesn't really. I mean, Aljo just doesn't really do a lot in terms of submission volume, like official. Like, I remember the Corey Sandhagen backpack, but like. I think your methodology here is correct, but when I see Sterling 5-1 submission, 10-1 knockout, I kind of prefer knockout because I see a guy on paper that doesn't really go all for submissions. Now, I don't know, he's plus 140 by points. I'm showing value on that. I've got decision 47.2%, so maybe I end up on a double chance points KO here. Let's see what that is. It's plus 100.
Knockout. Yeah. I feel like the only way the knockout would happen is if he just had a dominant position.
Yeah.
Maybe on top on the ground. Not even in full mount, but like if Kattar's on all fours, right?
Yeah.
And Aljo's just on top of him looking for the sub, and then he just throws the hammers down. But I just can't take him to knock out Calvin Kattar, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, the reason for that, Kattar on the wrong end of the most significant strikes in UFC history, 445, minus 331 striking differential, worst in UFC history. Like, this dude is a ironclad beating. But the thing I would point out here, he's 36. You pointed out that Renato Moicano fight. He lost that really convincingly in the striking realm here. Like, I hate to be a hater because
I was telling Moicano that I was like, I don't think I saw that fight. I need to go back and watch it. But that was impressive, man, the striking differential from Moicano.
Yeah. And you look at some of Kattar's wins. I'm not super high on Giga. The Ige fight was really close. Jeremy Stevens, at the end of his career, not really doing a lot for me. Ricardo Lamas, Chris Fishgold. The Shane Burgos upset is what put him on the map way back in the day. But, like, I feel like Kattar's pretty inactive. He's taken a ton of damage. He's now 36. Aljo moving up in weight. I think he's going to be even more voluminous, and like this is a guy that threw a ton at bantamweight already. He's not going to have the cardio concerns. Not really super outmatched in terms of size here. This way, like he's got a 4-inch height discrepancy, but he's a big guy. Like I don't think he's going to be small in there compared to Kattar. Like you're thinking backpack. I totally get that and I understand it. It's why I'm glad I parlayed Aljo minus 150. I may just leave it to that because I'm struggling with an outcome when my brain says submission and my model says knockout, and I'm really struggling with deciphering those two. If you play Aljo by sub plus 500 in like one of those two-leggers, I'm going to be rooting for you, and I think it's got a really legitimate shot to hit because we just haven't seen Kattar against grapplers, man. Arnold Allen, Emmett, Giga, Max Holloway, Dan Ige, Jeremy Stevens.
What's like really standing out to me is Deiveson and Aljo by sub. That would be such a nice payout.
Yeah. I mean, I think both of those guys, they've got the right skills, and like you're saying, maybe it's not the most... I said this at the top of the show, maybe it's not the most likely outcome, but what does the fight look like if the fight doesn't have its most likely outcome? I think that's a good point by you, Maddie.
I gotta see out of curiosity with that page real quick.
That it's going to be a Hard Rock slip later on the...
30 to 1, that's 1,000 to win 30,000. That's like a sign right there.
Alrighty. Well, if it pays exactly 30 to 1, whenever I like build something and it pays like an exact amount, like exactly plus 1,500, I'm like, this is meant to be. This slip pays exactly plus 1,500. But like I like that methodology, and it sounds like both of us like Aljo in fairly dominant fashion. So we'll move forward. We finally made it to the early prelim. I mean, we have chewed through so many great fights. This one, another one here. Aleksandar Rakić taking on Jiří Procházka, light heavyweight featured prelim. I think this is a big one because at the end of the night, they'll decide this strap between Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill. One of these guys wants to have a seat at the table to maybe be next in line. Think the winner would have a good case. What are you thinking here with Rakić, a slight minus 122 favorite?
He's been super inactive, bro. He takes one fight a year for the last 3 years.
Well, he tore his knee, like he dislocated his ACL in the Jan fight. So,
but even before that,
he
fights once in 2020, once in 2021, and then 2022. So both these guys coming off of injuries and like a finish. Well, both these guys coming off of getting finished and injuries, just in different order, right? I think.
Yep.
So that's interesting, I do think Rakić is the sharper side here for whatever reason. Like it's just you look at this fight and you're like, Procházka as an underdog, like that just like sticks out to you here. But I really want to watch some more footage. I haven't spent enough time on Rakić here. It's a tough fight for me, honestly. I think a lot of people like this fight to go the distance, which is plus 160.
Yeah, that's my angle, is that I, especially in a 3-rounder, Jiří a little bit more controlled, right? I certainly like the fight to go the distance. My models got it at 49.9%, so plus 160 is good value against that. Basically a coin flip. But like, I love Jiří here, and honestly, I am so tired of falling for like the professional with the sharp trap. You look at the Super Bowl, all the money coming in on the Chiefs, the 49ers on the other side. Guess what? Kansas City ended up winning. Look at UConn through this NCAA tournament. You lay the points every time like an idiot and get through it. I feel like Rakić is a professional trap here. It is going to trap guys into being like, well, Rakić is the cleaner guy. He's the more technical guy. And you look at his analytical profile, he's got a better striking defense. Way better. 53% compared to 40%. Jiří is unorthodox. I think some people will say that he's sloppy, right? I feel like Jiří is effective. It's just, it doesn't translate some of the unorthodox striking. We saw him submit Glover Teixeira. We saw him hold his own on the ground against Glover Teixeira. I think he's super well-rounded, way less ring rust. Like, this is Rakic's first fight in like 2 years, coming off the knee injury. He's a little in the position Jiří was in coming off the shoulder injury. This line definitely moving Jiří's way, so don't feel like... If this was truly sharp money, like on this side, moving it to Rakić, it would continue to balloon in his direction. Jiří was plus 115 when I pulled this on Sunday. He's now minus 104. So it is moving in his direction. I've got Jiří at minus 115 personally. So like, I'm still good with minus 104. He's hanging out a few books at plus money. Like, I think it's a good bet. And I think Jiří by sub decision is going to be the angle I take here. I've got it 28.9% of the time. So my model has it at plus 246. If I look at Procházka by sub decision, which are his two least likely outcomes, it's plus 400. And I know for a fact right now that's going to make my card. I look at Rakić, bro. Look at his recent results. Farted around with Thiago Santos, aged, no need Thiago Santos. The Anthony Smith fight went the distance and was boring as heck. Like, he was neck and neck with Jan Blachowicz. Like, these guys are not light heavyweight anymore. Like, he knocked out Jimmy Manuwa, lost to Volkan Oezdemir. This is not where the division is anymore. Like, there are killers here with, like, Jiří and Jamal Hill. And, has he faced Nikita Krylov? I don't think he has. Like, he knocked out Devin Clark. How does that look against Prachnio? It's like, I just don't think he's got any good wins, and I don't know if he has this ranking,
You're selling me big time right now, because I was trying to understand it a little bit more, because I don't know why many people are picking him. But, yeah, and I agree with you. Let me ask you this with Jiří. How do you think he was looking in the Pereira fight until he got finished?
I thought it was pretty even. Like, I thought it was even. That fight was so cool.
He was looking solid. I thought he was looking solid. He had the takedown. The strike differential wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah.
Pereira almost had. Now that I remember, Pereira had that submission attempt. That guillotine was pretty tight.
Yeah.
Did Rakić have that in his pocket?
So we've gotten 0.2 submission attempts per 15 minutes from Rakić, so to be determined, I guess. Yeah. Like, I don't think Jiří's going to shoot here, though.
I don't think either guy shoots in this fight.
Agreed. Yeah, and, like, maybe Rakić could go there, but Jiří's shown decent takedown defense, especially in a tough matchup like Glover, who is trying to get him to the ground. Like,
the Blachowicz knockout,
that was just a leg injury. It was just a leg injury, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, he tore his ACL, and then the fight was over. Rakić was actually winning that fight, but again, how many times have we seen Jan Blachowicz out-wrestled at this point? Like, it's just not something that means a lot to me when I think Jiří would cruise through Jan in a 3-rounder as well. Like, I just don't have a good measuring stick for Rakić in order to take him. My model likes Jiří and favors him. Like, I think it's good value, and I'm not really concerned at this point with... I feel like books set these professional traps now, dude. I really do. I feel like what they're trying to do is they're trying to sucker guys who are just contrarian bettors that don't do the research, that don't dive into the data, that don't dive into the results. And, like, you look and say, hey, nobody's on Rakić and he's minus 120. Why is that? I think it's just a trap from the books, to be honest with you. That's what I chalk it up to.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't have an official pick on this one by any means here. I want to watch some more footage. Do you have any thoughts on Jiří round 2-3 though?
Yeah, like, so when I break down Jiří individual outcomes, I've got knockout as the most likely outcome, 24.2%, and he is, let's see, what's Jiří by KO? Plus 195.
Yes.
That's going to be, I'm not really showing value there, but it is the more likely of the two. What's Jiří by sub? Jiří by sub is 11-1.
Jiří doesn't have any round 1 knockouts though.
Yeah.
But he finds ways in round 2.
Yeah.
Dominic Reyes round 2, Volkan Oezdemir. There's your MMA math, right? Oezdemir gets knocked out by Jiří, right? And then Oezdemir lost a decision. Or no?
If you give me 2, Maddie, just roll with me on this bets on this card. Jiří by points plus 600 is a sick number with the slow pace.
That's a crazy number, bro.
That's such a good number. I've got him. I've got Jiří 22% to win by decision, so that's plus 355. That is the best individual outcome. Like, I wouldn't go round 3. I think him by points. I love that number in this fight because Rakić just doesn't do very much, so it's really hard to have these explosive moments. He's been very trepidatious against high-level, dangerous competition, and I'm talking about Thiago and Jan Blachowicz. Jiří's got hammers, bro, and sneaky submission skills as well.
And he's never been finished outside of the injury. What about prior to the UFC?
I don't think he came in from Rizin on a huge winning streak, so it would have been a long time since he won.
No, yeah, he has one submission loss.
Yes.
I can't even see when that's from.
How about June 2013?
June what?
June 2013, regionally in some promotion I've never heard of for Jiří's submission loss. Rear naked choke.
Yeah.
You know,
What about Rakić?
oh.
He has one submission loss. I think it was in 2011.
Yeah, I'm taking a look here.
Yeah.
Those are so long ago. Like, honestly, I throw those results out once you get past about 5 or 6 years.
My point is, why the hell is the guy that throws more volume against a guy that's historically very durable? Why is he 6-1 to win a decision?
Because Yuri's never won a decision in UFC,
right?
And people wiki cap.
I love that play, bro. That's gonna be a perfect leg to one of my crazy parlays. There's no doubt about it.
I don't even think that I'm gonna need my second get out of jail free card, but if I have, say, Maddie, just trust me, Yuri by points. I love that number. I think it's a great tenor of the fight.
I love it, bro.
Cool. So we'll move on to the main card, UFC 300. Like Maddie said, it's really more about depth than this card in particular. We have some really good fights. The titles are a little bit underwhelming compared to what, middleweight's not on the line, lightweight's not on the line, but we got some good fights on this main card for you. This is not one of them. The first fight up on the main card, Bo Nickal. Looks like he's going to break his own record for largest UFC favorite ever. He was roughly minus 2,200 consensus against Val Woodburn. He now sits minus 3,000 on FanDuel against Cody Brundage. I'm going to get up and walk off the set if Maddie sells me on Cody Brundage individual props, but I don't have to worry about that because I already saw that he bet this fight with a pretty sharp angle. So, Maddie, why don't you tell the folks at home what you already got cooked up for this fight?
Yeah, I got... At minus 110, I have the fight to end by submission. So I could have took Bo Nickal by sub at even money.
Yep.
But I was like, if I only have to pay 10 cents to get either guy by sub, that at least gives me the crazy outcome of maybe a club and sub for Cody Brundage. Sure. So I just went with it, bro, and I hammered it. I put 3,300 to win 3,000 on it. I love this play. Bo Nickal has no reason to stand and bang with Cody Brundage. This isn't Val Woodburn on short notice. Mm-hmm. And we've seen what happens when you're not careful against Cody Brundage. You know, that the Zachary Reese fight we both got burnt on?
Yep.
Now, again, he ain't picking up and slamming Bo Nickal, so that ain't happening.
Yep.
But I think, we see like in Bo Nickal, what was it? The not Neil Magny.
Jamie Pickett.
Jamie Pickett. Yeah, I said Neil Magny. The Jamie Pickett fight, he made that sub look easy. I get that there may or may not have been a nut shot before the takedown, but when it did hit the ground, he made it look easy overall. I just think the submission is way more likely than a minus 110 bet here, so I hammered that. I think round one, maybe early round two, Bo Nickal by submission. I just love the number here, and I also got to trust that if Bo does face some adversity, and when I say adversity, meaning he doesn't just get him out of there in the first 3 minutes, I got to trust that his striking defense, his in and out movement, his cardio, his youth, his chin will be just fine. And maybe he even gets one late, which honestly, I want to look at those numbers because is it crazy to you, though, that you can get a minus 3,000 favorite at minus 110 to win by his most likely outcome? Like, the math doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I mean, so when you think about implied probability, minus 300 means 96.8% likely to win. Then with individual method
minus
of victory.
3,000.
Yeah, no, I know, but minus 3,000 is 96.8% likely to win. Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. Inside the distance is minus 650.
Yeah, so then minus 650, they're saying 86.7% likely to win inside the distance, so about 10% likely to win by decision. Yeah. Okay, so then you split that 86.7%. What does he win? It looks like odds makers are saying about 53% of the time. Now there's hold baked in here as well. FanDuel's got to pay the bills too, right? But about 53% of the time they're going to take Nickal via submission, and then maybe about 45, something like that, by maybe a little bit less than that by knockout, because there's usually about a 6% hold on FanDuel. So, that's why if you guess right, I think the KO and sub is basically a coin flip here. I like your submission. I bet. Here's why. What tendency has Cody Brundage shown when a guy shoots a takedown, and Bo Nickal's going to shoot takedowns in this fight? He jumps Gilly. He did it against Adolfo Vieira. He did it against Sodiq Dumas. I love that you encompassed that tendency, because to me, that is Cody Brundage's one path to win here. I feel like odds makers do not make a guy a minus 3,000 favorite just because he's really good. That number also is indicative of what they think of Cody Brundage, and I couldn't agree more. His last 2 wins, one of the silliest DQs I've ever seen against Jacob Malkoun, and then the Zachary Reese slam in which he was about to get armbarred himself. Hail Mary attempt ended up knocking Reese out cold on the canvas. Bo Nickal's not going to be in bottom position, and so maybe a disqualification again is a possibility here, but Cody Brundage to me has 6 minutes of cardio. Dude has awful striking defense. Would not surprise me if Bo starched him at distance, given what we said against Val Woodburn. But I do prefer the submission. I think he shoots takedowns on Brundage. Nick Maximov landed 4 of them. To add on to your play, Maddie, I actually really do like round 2 here. Round 2 sub plus 800. To me, way better value than you're getting round 1 sub at plus 160. Just because Brundage, when he's got his cardio and his wits about him, he's a decent grappler. He's a decent defensive guy that knows what he's doing in those positions. He was going to stay safe against Malkoun and probably survive that first round. I feel like he is competent enough to test Bo in a way that Jamie Pickett couldn't. Pickett was submitted in the first by Kyle Dawkins. Val Woodburn obviously not qualified. Bo's first few competition has not been great. Cody Brundage sucks too, but he doesn't quite suck as bad as these other guys that Bo has gone through. I like round 2 sub plus 800 in this fight. I could see myself playing round 2 instead, which would be plus 410, but I kind of just want to ride with Maddie since he's got 3,300 on a submission, and I do think Bo does take the path of least.
You actually think there's, if Bo gets it done inside the distance, you actually think it's 50-50 on the KO versus sub?
Yes, just because Brundage might quit via ground and pound, I'm really concerned about his striking defense. At distance, it's really bad, dude. Oleszejczuk chinned him. He got chinned by someone else, and it just might be a quit. From L.
Chin him though. He reversed position and then pounded him out.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I mean, and that's more appropriate.
I guess you're right because he did kind of on the ground. Even it was weird. Yeah. Yeah, if Bo Nickel grounds and pounds him, I lose, right? But I'm not laying a minus 600 on inside the distance. Mm-hmm. Him by decision is plus 750, which if that happens, the UFC would be pissed. If you don't go out and finish Cody Brundage in this fight, you're going to lose your hype, honestly.
We have already seen better submission skills from Bo than Cedric Dumas, who just didn't know what he was doing. Otherwise, he would have submitted Cody too, because Cody gave his chin so much in that fight. And I have full confidence that when Cody hits quitting time, that he will get put out one way or another. And that's the thing to me is I feel so bad about Brundage. I will say, Maddie, here's another point to your submission angle. Bo just got a knockout in his last fight. Everybody laid sub at minus 120, minus 130, whatever it was. And you and I were on knockout in that Woodburn fight, right? I feel like it's recency bias of, the knockout could be the case here. Maybe sub is a little undervalued this time, and you kind of have to alternate.
That's exactly what I put on Twitter, bro. I'm like, this number is recency bias written all over it. The Val Woodburn fight, and look, if you look at the Val Woodburn fight, he shot takedowns first. He couldn't get them. Val Woodburn's a big, thick, low center of gravity guy. Yeah. Again, I love this play. No one's talking me out of it. I mean, they can't. I already bet it. I just don't think it's anywhere near 50-50 on the KO to sub. I think it's 80-20 to the sub.
Would you see the fight? Okay, yeah. I would you be willing to sprinkle round 2 with me? Here's why I say it. Yeah. Cody Brundage 73% takedown D. It's decent. I could see him providing a little bit of resistance in a way that the other guys have.
Make my card for at least a quarter unit for sure.
Let's go. Okay, so we're moving on. I'm only going to take that small dart at this fight. It is a mess for me. The Kayla Harrison fight, Bo Nickel fight are the ones I could not model on this card. I could model everything else, including what might be a lightweight title contender eliminator here in the next fight up, 4th to last on the card. Arman Tsarukyan taking on Charles Du Bronx Oliveira. Oh my lord, this could headline just about any UFC pay-per-view in the world except this one. What a fight. Obviously, Charles Oliveira, fan favorite. Arman Tsarukyan getting there. These guys can both do everything, obviously. So when we dive into the betting numbers, Tsarukyan minus 230 favorite, where do you think the value lies in this fight?
Please try to explain to me why the number is up to minus 230 right now on FanDuel.
Yeah.
I did see a recent picture of Arman Tsarukyan. He looks like he's on every fucking supplement or steroid you could ever imagine. He's got a 10-pack. He looks absolutely yoked.
Yep.
and he's young in his prime. I'm going to go with my gut. Tsarukyan comes out and 10-8s Oliveira in the first round, but doesn't get him out of there. Oliveira comes out in round 2 and KOs him on the feet. That's my prediction. I can't get away from it. With that said, I am scared shitless on betting Oliveira here. The whole world is going to bet him as an underdog.
Yeah.
We've seen what happens in the Islam fight. We've seen what can happen in the Beneil Dariush fight. He can get out-wrestled and out-grappled consistently, especially against, I think, a stronger guy and a more complete wrestler. And he's got to be careful, man. He can't play from bottom position in this fight and just seek finishes. Like, I think he needs to do I think this is the Michael Chandler fight all over again.
Yeah.
You know, you get dominated in the first round, and then you come out round 2 and find the chin. I really believe that's the formula to this fight for him. Oliveira's probably super confident in this matchup, but I think Arman Tsarukyan's probably even more confident. He probably looks at the fight the same way Islam did. Mm-hmm. You know, and Arman really tested Islam and almost won that fight a while back. So this is as hard as it gets for me. I just feel like they're begging us to take Oliveira, and that's what scares the shit out of me because nobody can tell me that's not what's happening here.
Yeah. I agree with you, but, like, honestly, you look at Arman's body of work, it's like, how do you forecast that he's going to 10-8 Charles Oliveira here, dude? When we saw both of these guys had very similar fights against Beneil Dariush, they stuffed the early wrestling advances, ended up chinning him in the first round, right? But when you look at Tsarukyan, he goes into the third round with Joaquim Silva. Do you remember he was on skates in that fight? Like, Silva at one point had hurt Tsarukyan, and we talked about that going.
Why I love the knockout prop on Oliveira. Yeah. The value is through the roof.
And then he goes the distance with Damir Ismagulov. Ismagulov can't defend takedowns. We saw him against Grant Dawson have the same type of fight. The difference with Charles Oliveira, number one, he's very, very strong from those positions. He's hard to keep down. He's always kicking his legs. He's getting his feet on the hips. He's escaping. He's throwing up submissions. Like, Oliveira is not a guy that just sits in bottom position for long periods of time. And he's not washed. He's 34 years old. There is attrition here. But, like, when I look at this fight, I see more red flags on the Tsarukyan side. No UFC attempts by submission. Now he's taken on the all-time submission attempt leader. Is his jiu-jitsu up to the task? Like, I brought that point up against Dariush. Obviously, it ended up not mattering, but I think it is a red flag if we go back and look at this fight and Arman gets submitted. You think, oh my god, like, why didn't I see that coming? It's one of those things that I wanted to jot down. And then Tsarukyan's head defense is not amazing all of the time. I think you're right. I think this is like the typical Oliveira car crash type of environment, but we've actually seen more power from Charles. Like, you remember he had Justin Gaethje hurt when those two fought in Arizona. Tsarukyan really hasn't shown. He got Christos Giagos out of there in the first round, just like Bahamondes did. He split Joel Alvarez's forehead open with elbows, like Alvarez was trying to play bottom in that fight. And I think Oliveira trying to play bottom is where things get dicey for him. But
exactly.
at distance, I think I'd favor Charles. In a dominant position with potential to submit, I think I'd favor Charles. My model favors Charles here. I've got Oliveira. It's something absurd. And I'm sorry, I should have this pulled up. So,
took time off from the Islam fight, right? And then he comes out and he got it was a head kick, right? It went down as punches as the official knockout, but it was a head kick that.
And he dominated that round. He dominated that round start to finish. 72% of his strikes landed. Like, I feel like Oliveira's win over Dariush was more dominant than Tsarukyan's. And, like, the body of work. By the way, the level of competition. Oliveira went toe-to-toe with Gaethje on the feet. He had that wild back-and-forth fight with Chandler. Like, think of the experience edge in Oliveira's direction here. I still feel like Charles is in his prime. This number to me says he's washed and he's going to get chinned. When was the last time we saw Charles get chinned? It was against Islam, who's the gold standard and the best in the world. I'm not there with Arman, bro. I know for a fact how I'm going to approach this fight. Probably going to be just a one-unit play, but I'm going to take Charles inside the distance. He's plus 176. Can
I sway you to the knockout side at plus 800?
No.
I think it's his path, bro. I think it's his path.
Yeah. The problem is that I would crush myself if he secured a submission, and my whole read on Tsarukyan is why doesn't he have a UFC submission attempt yet? And then I left the sub off the table. That's the maybe here's what I'm gonna do.
You can sprinkle on it additionally though.
Bingo. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play a unit maybe on inside.
1-2, even a 1-2 round 1-2 would be, I think, a sick play.
By the way, I've got this fight 71% to go the distance, and most of the decision equity sits with Tsarukyan, so I wouldn't even bother with Oliveira's money line. I'd just play him inside the distance here.
I agree with you completely.
So
I think Tsarukyan by decision is not the worst play in the world.
No, I've got it at 24.7%. What are we looking at? It's plus 320. So yeah, I'm showing value. Maybe I add Tsarukyan by points to that trio of plus money bets. Like if you can get the tenor of the fight, you can bet a lot of these long shots like Maddie and I do. Yeah. And if one of them cashes, you profit on the fight. Like if I throw a half unit on Charles ITD and Tsarukyan points, and one of them cashes, I'm making money because everything's.
All I gotta say to you right now is. I have to let you know this because I just whipped it up on FanDuel and okay. I can't hold it in any longer. But it's jumping off my phone to me right now that this is hitting.
Okay,
it's crazy, but it's the people's picks. Like everybody in the stadium is going to want to see this. Jim Miller by knockout plus 550. Charles Oliveira by knockout plus 800. 1,000 pays $57 fucking thousand on FanDuel. I'm telling you, I want to play that so badly because Bobby Green coming off of that bad beatdown. We've seen Arman get chinned. He recovered, but Joaquin Silva chinned the shit out of him. Oliveira hits as hard as anyone in that division. I don't care what anyone says. Justin Gaethje said that he literally had his chin like vibrating. He hit him so hard.
Yep.
I get that the club and sub could happen, but to me, the value's on the knockout for Oliveira. And I like the play on Jim Miller here, especially, just the whole crowd behind him. And Bobby Green, I still not positive he's fully recovered even 5 months later. I think Bobby Green's taking this fight just saying to himself, like, oh, this is a good matchup for me. And it is. Yep. But people forget Jim Miller can crack. He's gotten way better at cracking, like, with age.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I just think I just believe in my heart that two-legger is going to hit, bro.
Yeah. I really feel like a bulk of Oliveira's knockout equity, which, by the way, I've got at 20.4%, so I'm showing a lot of value on it, is in the first and second round. No, like, I would be very concerned for Oliveira if this fight went into the third round. I think he'd be down on the cards. So, sure. Round one, Oliveira KO 17-1, round 2 26-1.
Yeah. I like it.
That's huge. Those are huge now. Like, well, I guess I'll have to do some math. Would I rather lay 0.2 units on plus 1,000 or 0.1 units on each of those? Like, what would my expected value be, or should I just take the knockout anyway? Oh, it's not plus 1,000. It's plus 800. Well, that makes that decision easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was plus 1,000. That's my bad. So we'll move forward.
Real quick, I think this is the one fight Oliveira's like. Doesn't even want to go to the ground with Arman. Nope. Like, even if you look at the Beneil Dariush fight, when he started to hurt him, he had no interest in going in for that submission win. Like, if he hurts Justin Gaethje on the feet or Dustin Poirier on the feet, he's going to go for that club and sub after. But he hurts Beneil Dariush on the feet, he's pounded him out with ground and pound. He hurt, and that's why I love this plus 800 number, because I feel the same way about Arman Tsarukyan. If you hurt Arman Tsarukyan, and then you go to the ground with him, that gives him time to now recover and defend the submission attempts.
Yep.
And I just think that just get the TKO. I really believe that the plus 800 is one of the most mispriced numbers on this entire card.
Yeah, I got a take for you. I'm curious if I think Charles Oliveira is the single most difficult matchup in the top 5 for Tsarukyan. I feel like
Islam is so good.
Yeah, Islam's really good, but we saw those two decently in the same vicinity and where Islam likes to operate. And
I would take Arman over Dustin Poirier, and I hate to say that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, is Poirier back in the top 5 now? I guess maybe he is, but
I'm not even thinking about that.
I feel like Oliveira is better than Poirier. I think we saw with that. By the way, that's another name that Charles beat. Like, when I'm talking about experience, look at all these guys, Oliveira. It's insane.
The problem is, though, the play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
When strikers hurt Oliveira, they're afraid to go get that finish. When Islam hurts him, he's not afraid to go right down to the ground with him.
Sure.
That's the one thing I will say, that if Arman does hurt him, he will go down to the ground and finish him. Whereas like a Chandler, a Poirier, a Gaethje maybe wouldn't. I mean, Chandler's crazy; he'll do it. But like even Poirier said that was the mistake, is he respected the ground game too much, because Poirier could have finished Oliveira in the first round.
Yeah, and he let it back up. Yeah, and he let it back up.
So it's just to play devil's advocate. But no, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
I don't think, even if I liked Tsarukyan, I don't think I could bet him here. I just couldn't get there on it.
The number's just really bad. I feel like what we're doing is young guy versus washed guy type of thing, but I don't feel Charles is washed by any means just because of that Islam fight. So let's move on to the fight that I am proudly going to dub Austin's fight, and I think it's a no-brainer. In the BMF title fight, first belt on the line, maybe the coolest one, Justin Gaethje taking on Max Holloway. Now, I don't think anyone had this on their 2024 bingo card. UFC delivered, though, here, Maddie. This is a heck of a scrap. It is going to test a lot of things about these guys that maybe they haven't really seen before. And Max back at 155, only one appearance here against Dustin Poirier for an interim title way back in the day. Thoughts on this matchup with Gaethje coming back as a minus 186 favorite?
For whatever reason, and I know this doesn't, that's what I'm looking for, this isn't an indication of what the betting market is doing.
Yeah.
But every person on social media, including fighters, are picking Max Holloway in this fight, saying, oh, people are counting him out. Oh, he's a great underdog. He could easily win this fight. I like the Justin Gaethje side here a lot.
Okay.
I actually have an interesting take here, because I think Justin Gaethje, it was at plus 300. I just looked and it's at plus 280, but I love Justin Gaethje by decision here.
Okay.
People think of Justin Gaethje as this reckless knockout artist, and the truth is, the last couple of years, he's not that anymore. As good as he still is at getting finishes, he's a more calculated fighter than he used to be. Max Holloway is one of the most durable fighters in UFC history. Gaethje, we see all the time in the UFC where the fighter that lands the bigger, more damaging shots wins decisions versus the fighter that lands more volume. No question to me Holloway is going to outstrike him, but there's also no question to me that I think Justin Gaethje will land the bigger and more damaging shots. I think Max's only path is late. And if that happens, I'll chalk my loss up to the game, but I like Justin Gaethje by decision. I think it's going to make one of my parlays. I love that number at nearly plus 300.
Yeah.
I think that, what's a prime example? I was just talking to somebody about, what's an example of a fight where someone outstrikes the person 2-1? Who'd Sean O'Malley just be? Cheeto Vera versus Cheeto Vera. Who's Cheeto Vera?
Cheeto Vera, Rob Font, right?
Rob Font. Go look at the stats and the data on that fight, and then go look at the who won the decision.
Well, there's a caveat there. I think Cheeto got 3 drops in that fight. Max Holloway's never been knocked down. So, the drop...
That's a good point.
The drop is a very... I think drops are overvalued in terms of who won the round. It could be a balance thing more than anything. I agree with you that I think Gaethje is going to land harder shots here. So, that's a very interesting angle. You and I on the same page as far as fight goes the distance.
271 to 159. Rob Font outstruck him 271 to 159. But Cheeto Vera won a unanimous decision that wasn't even close. If you look at the fight with the eye test, you look at the damage after the fight on both guys' faces, wasn't even a competitive fight. Yeah. But if you look at the data or the stats, you got outstruck 271 to 159. I think this fight, not as extreme as this, but I think this fight could play out similar to that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing, though, is Gaethje's got really good volume. 7.35 significant strikes landed per minute. That's actually more than Max, 7.17. So, I mean, Gaethje, I don't think it... I've got Max 86.8% likely to win the distance striking differential, but that's not 0% in Gaethje's direction. He's got good volume. I think Max will be more careful than he usually is at featherweight. I think he can tend to throw a lot of volume out there. I think he will choose his shots more carefully in this fight, just like he did against Dustin Poirier. By the way, he had a positive striking differential, +3 against Poirier back in that lightweight title fight. Poirier landed the harder shots and I think clearly won the decision. So that's to Maddie's point. With that being said, I look at how this betting line is. I think it's a little wide. I like Holloway to win a decision here. Like as far as my favorite value bet, I've got Max at -125. So I've got him winning a decision 36% of the time, and it's probably coming back. It's got to be like 3-1, close to 3-1 on FanDuel, plus 250. And by the way, wow, Gaethje by points longer than Holloway by points. That's weird for such a heavy favorite. But like, what do you think about fight? What do you think about fight goes the distance -106? Which this, by the way, this is a 5-rounder. It's important to keep that in mind for the BMF title, especially the way Gaethje can land on guys. Like, remember Tony Ferguson's face in a 5-rounder with Justin Gaethje? He was torn up in that fight, and Poirier says he's the hardest guy that he's ever been hit by. He says his bones must be made of something that is not of this earth. But like Max Holloway, again, never been dropped. 59% striking defense is excellent. I think an interesting wrinkle here is Holloway's shown a little bit more grappling tendencies recently. He had the submission attempt against Korean Zombie, had a couple against Yair Rodriguez, so that's like a weird thing that's in my mind when Gaethje's been subbed a couple of times in his last fight. I still think this is I feel like shooting a takedown in the BMF title belt should be a disqualification, and I think both.
Holloway subs 20-1, but I just can't see it. But that is.
I think these guys are going to stand and bang. And like again, it's like the sentiment of the belt is that you stand and bang, and that's what Poirier and Gaethje did. I assume Max will as well. It is going to be quantity over quality. I like the quality. I like permanent efficiency, and I always feel like. I feel like Max is a more efficient striker than either Poirier or Gaethje. It is just how the power comes back. I feel like it's currently undervalued that Max, when my brain, if I had a straight pick, like gun to my head for my mortgage, I would take Gaethje to win this fight. I feel like as the odds sit right now, I like the value on Holloway. And by the way, Gaethje was -205 on Sunday. He's down to -188. So a little bit of money moving this line. That's not surprising at all to me. I think Gaethje will finalize here in the 160s, -160. So
I like that as a parlay piece. I just don't see. I understand Max is Max, but like I would take Gaethje in a pick'em over Volkanovski. I really would. I wouldn't think twice about it whatsoever.
Okay.
I would take Gaethje. I would take Poirier. I would take both those guys over Volkanovski in a pick'em at 55. But I'm telling you right now, look at Gaethje's last 5 fights, 2 decision wins.
Fiziev and Chandler, right?
Fiziev and Chandler.
Yep.
You know, and Holloway's clearly better striking defense and durability than Chandler.
Yep.
And the Fiziev fight, I mean, he was starting to put a beating on Fiziev late. But that just makes me like this pick even more because he actually dropped the first round against Fiziev. You know, and he got better as the fight went on. And I think everyone believes that Holloway's just going to be the better guy late, which I get it. But I just think Gaethje, round 2, 3, those are going to be his rounds. You know, round 1, I don't know, and then 4 or 5, you just got to win one of those.
Yeah.
I just love the number. I'm getting a -180 favorite at almost plus 300 to win a decision against one of the most durable guys ever. So I'm definitely playing it.
I don't hate it at all, especially with such a lean I have toward length in this fight. It's interesting you say. I don't know if the late rounds favor Max. Like I feel like the cardio here is fairly comparable. Am I mistaken there? Like I
think as far as recently with Gaethje, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it's different because it's not even a matter of cardio; it's just fight style. He unloads the gas tank, but he's not doing that anymore.
No, he's not, and I think it would be a bad idea against Holloway to deplete your gas tank because then Max would be on TKO watch late.
Yeah. I really believe Gaethje's it should be like a -250 to 300 favorite in this fight. I just think that highly of him. He's being a little disrespected. When you look at the wins he's had.
Yeah.
You know?
Can I invite you to go to Twitter and check out the Hawaii themed shorts that Max Holloway has and see if it changes your mind? I'm kidding, but like they gave him some custom lay shorts that look sick. But
sure.
We're on the same page. We're both expecting a war, like 5 rounds on the feet. He likes Gaethje, I like Holloway, but like the tenor of the fight seems very predictable. So we'll ride with it. And we'll move on here to the second to last fight on the card. Weili Zhang taking on Yan Xiaonan, women's strawweight strap on the line. I think they would have preferred to do this fight in China. The Chinese card got canceled, so we brought in one of the most prestigious women's strawweights of all time already in Weili Zhang to defend her belt. She is minus 500 on FanDuel to do it against her fellow countrywoman. That is a rich price, Maddie, but I know you love you some Zhang Weili, so do I. So what are you thinking when you're looking at our betting market here?
Yeah. I haven't spent a lot of time on this fight just because of how wide it is. What's the number at right now?
It's minus 500 in Zhang Weili's direction.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now that's crazy to me.
I think it just feels a little long. My model, by the way, says it's a little long. I've got Weili at minus 225. It's just because it's women's strawweight. You know, if it's going to go the distance and Yan has shown really good striking defense, it's really hard to like fully separate and cover a minus 500 number. I'll try to sell you on my angle, I guess, here. I've got Weili winning by decision 40% of the time, 40.1% of the time. So I like her points prop plus 185. It is what just hit against Amanda Lemos, but Weili really hasn't shown a huge tendency for submissions. I think you saw that first and foremost in her last fight against Lemos. She just didn't even attempt.
Like unsubmittable outside of that standing arm triangle.
True.
You know, yeah. I think she did. What's the official submission attempts in that fight? Because I feel like she did go
Zero.
For them. She did go for them though, but I guess they're not. We both know the official submissions. It takes a lot to actually get documented as an official submission, but it did feel like she was going for them. She had so much ground control time. Do you feel like Weili's just going to wrestle this fight?
I think it would be the smart thing to do. I think it would be the path of least resistance. Do you remember Yan Xiaonan when she took on Carla Esparza and got stuck underneath her for the first finish of Esparza's career?
Yeah.
That fight sticks in my mind. Now, she showed improvement against Mackenzie Dern. She didn't get submitted in 5 rounds there, but like, the way Weili looked like a hammer against Amanda Lemos, someone who is capable, who can throw up submissions off her back, I feel like she's going to get mauled on the ground here. And it's like, it just is a question of, okay, well, I look at Weili's individual outcomes. Women's strawweight tendencies look like a decision. She's not super voluminous with official submission attempts. The thing that I fear here is that these two, obviously share the same tradition from China, right? That there's too much mutual respect, and it's not exactly as violent as that Lemos outing was. I think that is anecdotally why my heart is leaning points as much as my model is.
Yeah, it feels like they're begging you to take Weili inside the distance, minus 115. It feels like it's free. Minus 500 favorite. Has Yan gone? Has she gone on a 5-rounder?
Yes, she went there with Mackenzie Dern. It was all 5 rounds. She won via majority decision, which, I don't think Mackenzie's a good win in the title picture because her striking is so bad, and she really hasn't been able to submit any of these top 10 girls.
Andrade just made a reckless mistake in the first round. I think, if anything, Jan's overrated right now, overvalued.
Yeah. By the way, that was her first career knockdown, 0.13% knockdown rate. I don't understand what the win condition for her here is. I think it's skating by a decision on the outside.
Robbery decision, yeah.
Weili would have had to have completely abandoned her wrestling. Now, Yan Xiaonan's 70% takedown defense is not bad, but Lemos was in a similar boat and then got freight trained. I feel like Weili has... If I had to tier women's strawweight right now, I would say Zhang deserves to be in the first tier by herself. Then I would put Suarez and Andrade in the next tier. That would be my official tiering of this, while believing both of those ladies could beat Weili, but Weili deserves to be a favorite at this point, given what we've seen. The Esparza mauling in Esparza's territory was very impressive.
Yeah.
And Weili, we know she's got a power advantage here when she absolutely starched Andrade in the first round, when she lit Joanna Jędrzejczyk's forehead up to a point where she had a hematoma and looked like an alien, right? Weili's no doubt the harder hitter here. I would be stunned with age the same, both of them in their prime, Weili fighting tougher competition. This would be the favorite I would be most stunned to lose outside of Bo. I
agree. I actually think Brundage has more of a path than
I for sure. Because of the unknown.
Bo Nickal isn't been tested. We know how good he actually is, but we still haven't seen him go against good competition.
Right.
A part of me wants to hammer Weili inside the distance, bro.
Yeah.
Minus 115. Like, you're giving that chick, think about it, you're giving her 25 minutes to find a finish when there's not going to be enough danger coming back at her. I just think that feels like a good bet, but it does feel fishy at the same time.
And last, but certainly not least, we end up with a great fight. One of the closest money lines on the card here in this light heavyweight title fight. The current champion, the most recent champion that lost his belt due to injury. Gotta unify this guy. Alex Pereira taking on Jamal Hill. Should be a striking battle between two of the best maybe to ever do it in this 205-pound division. You know, John Jones is certainly in that mix, but Alex and Jamal Hill have to be right there. Maddie, we got a great fight on tap here. I have made a big stand on it. I was going to save my you got to come with me bet here. You might already be coming with me, though. I'm not sure where you stand on this fight. You like Pereira as a favorite or Jamal Hill as a slight underdog here? I've been super torn the past couple weeks on this fight. Yesterday, we had Jamal Hill come as a guest on the podcast. And I'm going to be honest, he swayed me a little bit towards him. He's just so confident. He feels like he's just good everywhere. I'm telling you right now, like, if it wasn't for the injury, I wouldn't think twice about it. Yeah.
You know, we're looking at, it's going to be exactly 9 months. I think a day off from the day he got injured to the fight date of this Saturday.
Yeah.
That's the one concern I have. It really is. But other than that, we haven't seen... You know, obviously the Paul Craig fight is what it is, but we haven't seen Jamal Hill get hurt, right?
No, and no,
ever.
Nope. He just was caught by Paul Craig. He was caught in a triangle. Right. Craig dislocated his elbow.
That's it. And to me, if I have to bet on two guys' chins, I'm taking Jamal. 100 out of 100 times.
Yeah,
and that's what I keep coming back to in this fight is. I trust his chin way more. If Israel Adesanya is putting you out cold, I get the weight cut. I get the lighter division. I understand all of that. The other thing, I struggle with it. I think that this is a pick'em fight, and I would take either guy at plus money. I've been saying that for weeks.
Sure.
This line's actually closing up a little bit now, I think, because Jamal's plus 110. I believe he was a bigger dog, or am I mistaken?
Jamal was as big. He was as big that I've seen him at like plus 135, and then it's kind of slowly creeped a little bit more so toward a pick'em.
Let me sell you though on my favorite play of this fight by far.
Okay.
And it's going to be scary, which I assume you already know what it is by me saying that, but it's the over of 1.5 rounds.
Oh, okay. That's not scary at all.
Okay. All right. Well, it's minus 168 right now, which I hate that because I thought it was like minus 150.
Okay.
But what I'll say here is we see in heavyweight fights or we see in fights where two guys that have massive respect for each other's power, this is a 5-round main event. Yep. I don't, as much as Jamal Hill talks crazy and says I'm going to walk right through him, I don't think he's rushing in to get in a scrap. I definitely don't think Alex Pereira is even considering that.
Yep.
Right? I think Alex Pereira, we're going to see like the old school kickboxing days where he's ready to like go a bunch of rounds and try to win a point fight. Maybe Jamal Hill. The one concern I do have is the injury. If he looks at this as like I have to be on my feet for 25 minutes after that injury, whereas I could just march forward and try to get a finish, that's the one thing that I think could ruin this bet. But I love the over 1.5 as a parlay piece, maybe for the parlay of our show. I think it makes a ton of sense here. Two guys that respect each other's power and striking. I think it goes well past 7.5 minutes. That's my favorite play of one of my favorite plays of the card, truthfully.
Yeah, absolutely. Something very interesting that might lean toward like a specific round here. Fight to start round 3 is minus 110. The over 1.5 is minus 168. So they're baking a lot of implied probability into that second half of the round 2.
Well, we see a lot of round 2 finishes, right? Pereira's coming off a round 2 finish and then
lost to
he got finished by round 2 finish.
Yeah.
And then his first win in the UFC was round 2 finish.
Interesting.
Hill, on the other hand, he has two round 2 finishes. So,
bro, I honestly feel good about like Jamal's injury at this point. Like Achilles can be a bad one, but like the way the Hill's particular style, I don't think it's overly relevant. I would actually be more concerned if he was a wrestler or a grappler. I feel like
if he was a basketball player.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. And that's actually how he hurt himself. But like, I have laid down the mini Orca. I have not played 5 units on a single MMA fight since Casey Tanner on the Contender Series RIP, and I'm never doing a Contender Series ever again. Yeah. I put 5 units down plus 125. Jamal, Sweet, Dreams, Hill, and New, or I guess, and still, he never really lost his belt in the octagon. I think this dude is special. The way that he pieced up Glover Teixeira, Teixeira has at least been defensively responsible. The volume that he could maintain over 25 minutes, I felt better about Glover's chin than I do Alex Pereira, given the Izzy fight. It wasn't just the Izzy fight, the second one.
Beat the shit out of Glover, bro. I don't know how Glover survived that 4th round.
Yeah. And he put Thiago Santos out. He put like Johnny Walker out. Like, you name it. Jamal Hill. Glover must be made of granite or something, but I know Pereira's not, because it's not just the second Izzy fight. Izzy had him on skates in the 3rd round in the first fight, right? And like, we never got to see really a lengthened Strickland Pereira type of thing. Yuri seemed very uncomfortable stylistically striking with Pereira, went to his grappling decently early in that fight. I feel like Jamal's going to be very comfortable, and the thing to note, he is a southpaw. I saw some great work on Twitter. I'm going to try to link it or retweet it about how when Hill's a southpaw, it really helps neutralize that Pereira calf kick. Pereira much more comfortable throwing it to an orthodox fighter. Jamal's a southpaw, so it's a different matchup. Pereira struggled. Yeah, I that part I didn't get to read the analysis deep enough, but like. Yeah. What I'm looking at here is both of these guys have fledgling striking defense, but like you said, I think it's a difference in chin here. My model is way all over the place here, where it's giving Pereira way too much credit for having the grappling upside here because of one submission attempt in his last fight. Like, it is so poorly equipped to handicap a fight this one-dimensional, but this is what it does say. Jamal Hill, 100%. It is 100% confident, based on historical trends, he will have a distance striking differential advantage. I'll take it. And I've got him at 32.4% to win by knockout. That's plus 200. Matches the number on FanDuel exactly, so I'm not exactly thrilled about that. I do like the over 1.5 here. I've got the fight 64% not likely to go the entire distance, but I do think there's a feeling out process. Hill hasn't been in there in quite a while due to the injury. Pereira is always somewhat, like Pereira just got the round 2 finish. I feel like he's always pretty timid in first round, and Alex doesn't really have a ton of power, like raw punching power here at this 205 weight class. I think Hill does, even though he wasn't able to drop Glover. This could be longer than we think, but I love Jamal Hill and his volume and his efficiency and his durability, and I'm fading, once again, another championship fight contender over 35 years old. Pereira's 36. I think the clock is ticking. I think it is Jamal Hill's time, and like, I can see Hill having a 2, 3, 4 year run near the top of this division that almost kind of mirrors Jon Jones. He reminds me a little bit of Jon Jones, very enigmatic and active on Twitter, very confident. Oh, I wonder if we could see him pull out some wrestling here. His pride, it sounded like on your podcast and every other one I've heard, that he thinks he's just going to knock him out cold. But like, I feel better about Hill as a well-rounded mixed martial artist too. I can't believe he's an underdog, but that's Poetan, right? He's a star, coming off a knockout, defending champion. I understand why he's minus 150, but I think Jamal's the side here.
Is there any value to you? And this number just went down when I just checked it.
Okay.
Jamal Hill by decision was plus 700 earlier. It's now plus 650. And it's funny because we asked him on the podcast, and he said, he's like, if Pereira can take it, he can take it. But he's like, I'm gonna put it on him.
I've got Hill decision plus 600, so I'm showing a little bit of value on it. The only thing that concerns me is I have more decision equity with Pereira just because of the efficiency. But like at this, you know what that is? That's the stupid grappling input that I can't get rid of in here. That's why it is giving Pereira more decision equity. If this is a striking match and my model projects him to win the distance differential, why not a decision, right? Like maybe, I don't think knockout decision is going to pay much more than his money line, but I could be talked into a decision in a lengthier fight here. Maybe I'm wrong, and it wasn't Teixeira's chin. It's just the fact that Hill may not have a ton of top shelf power against these bigger 205ers. Maybe that's the case. I don't hate that play at all, Maddie, especially with his volume.
Yeah. We asked Jamal how he would do at heavyweight. And obviously he's confident he's going to say, every time. But, bro,
Yeah.
I think he'd be a monster at heavyweight.
Yeah, very fast, and like the grappling in most of the matchups would not be a concern. My fear for Jamal in a fight, maybe against a Jiří or maybe against like a Magomed Ankalaev, is getting taken down and submitted. Right, like takedown defense not great at times. We saw how quickly Paul Craig was able to snatch his arm. Like I think that is a little bit of a concern. It's why I was wrong and I picked Teixeira in the last fight in Brazil. But yeah, I think Jamal could hang at heavyweight, bro. He's definitely got the size for it.
Pereira by sub is 20-1.
Oh wow,
that feels so short still.
Yeah, I'm taking Tom Aspinall over Jamal though, and that's like choosing between my children because like I've been on Jamal. I've literally been on Jamal Hill since he fought Clinton Abreu. There's a name drop for you. I was like, then this guy is really really special. And I feel so good about him in this position when I've been looking to fade Pereira for a bit now. Like I faded him against Jan. I liked Jan by points via wrestling. I faded him against Jiří. I thought the stoppage was a little early. That was an intense, close fight. I think Jamal's better than both guys though.
For sure. Give us 30 seconds or Brad's gonna fix this real quick.
Okay.
We gotta build up some heat right here. Parlay.
I like the over 1.5.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah. I feel like the fact that Jamal is a southpaw, like that right hand's gonna be up.
Yep.
I feel like Jamal's right hand up a little bit more fighting like this.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of nice, against that left hook.
Yep.
All right, well, we're both aligned. We're both aligned on Jamal Hill. It took me a while to get there. It seems like I'm going to lose some value with the number now going down a little. Do you sense that fight's going to be closer to a pick'em between today, we're recording on a Tuesday, and Saturday when the fight happens? Do you sense that Jamal Hill will be around even money by then?
So it's drifting. He's plus 110. He was plus 118 when I pulled on Sunday. If you have not yet, I would jump now because a lot of sharp money is coming in on Hill. Like Clint is running out his 7-unit max bet on Jamal. Like it's definitely pro money. Most money splits you see 60-70% on Pereira's side, but yet the numbers moving a little bit more toward Jamal. So I would jump on it as soon as you can.
Yeah.
So, alrighty, Maddie. With the main event in tow, we have I feel the pressure just because it's UFC 300, man. I want this one to hit above just any other normal Apex card, also looking to make it 2 in a row. Let's try to craft a parlay for the people. Do you want to do a safe one, like an official one, and then a fun one like we did last week?
100%. We have to.
Okay. So we're going to do the official one here.
Yeah, start with the safer official one.
Yeah, okay, so why don't we just talked about it. I like Pereira Hill over 1.5 in there, minus 168.
Say it one more time.
Pereira Hill over 1.5, minus 168.
I'm in, yeah.
Okay, so we'll put that in as a leg. Let's see here. Some other heavier favorites we were aligned on here. It's not ideal value, but both of us are pretty high on Figueiredo finding a way to win at some point. Would you
money line?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Just because I don't have a strong lean toward a method. Like I think I'd parlay Figgy at some point as well. That takes us.
We put Wei Lee money line in there.
Well, I was gonna say we're already at plus money, plus 109. So if we toss Wei Lee in there, it goes to plus 151.
I'm down.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if maybe we missed something like
put Procházka in there and call it a day.
Procházka. Well, okay, so we're doing the official safe one. If I throw Procházka in there, we go up to plus 392. Let's keep it in that plus 200, 300 range, just like we did last week. So
it's gonna be hard though for us to agree on that last leg.
Well, do you like Aljo money line?
I just don't at minus 1. I wouldn't straight bet that, for example. But I mean,
oh, okay. Well, I wouldn't straight bet Figueiredo minus 320 either. I just don't know which method he's going to win by.
Yeah, no. That's tough.
If you want to avoid Aljo, I get it, but it was plus 299 for Wele, Aljo, Figueiredo money line plus the main event over. If you don't like Aljo, that's fine. It's my model's best money line of the week. I've got Sterling at minus 275. So,
Yeah. Gaethje Holloway over 3.5 is minus 166.
oh, now you're speaking my language. I really like length in that fight.
It's
Over
pretty
3.5.
much the same
Yeah.
odds as the Holloway or as Sterling money line.
Yeah. It's plus 302. So then if we throw that out there, so over 3.5.
Because I just have a weird like in the back of my mind. I just picture Kattar getting a knockout like for whatever.
Oh no, I'd be bankrupt if that's the case. So that's not. Let's not.
The most that we didn't even talk about is the absolute bender Aljo went on after the O'Malley loss. Like it was for like a month or two.
What do you mean by
it? Like smoking, drinking, partying. He talks about that on his podcast. Maybe he's using reverse psychology.
Oh,
trying to like make the public or make Kattar think that like he's not the same. But he said that when he started training again, he was gassing quicker. His cardio was gone. But he was like smoking hookah, drinking. He went on a crazy run after that. It was like after the O'Malley loss, it was a way of coping with it. He seems like a very honest guy, but like maybe he's playing chess here. I don't know. But that is in the back of my head with Aljo for whatever reason.
Okay. Yeah, no, if we'd rather do this. So the official show parlay that I've got in here, I'm totally good with that. I've got enough Sterling exposure as is. I don't need any more of it. But the official show parlay, Deiveson Figueiredo money line, Zhang Weili money line, Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway over 3.5 rounds, Pereira, Jamal Hill over 1.5 rounds. So a couple overs, couple money lines, plus 302 on FanDuel Sportsbook or wherever you may end up being able to bet and wager on it. That is the official show parlay. Nice little 3-1 payout on a couple of heavy favorites as well as a couple favored totals. But Maddie, let's get a little fun here. Maybe build a two-legger.
Let's just go 2 legs. You give me your long shot of the card. I give you mine. I think you already know what mine's going to be.
I think you already know what mine's going to be, right? Jiří Procházka by points 6-1. That's my favorite long shot on the card.
And I'm going Oliveira KO 8-1.
Okay, let's see what it pays. I mean, like if it's that easy for both of us, it's probably meant to be.
It's going to be like 48-1, right?
All right. So Jiří by points, and then I don't like to do math like that. I let the bet slips do it for me. I do enough math that.
Tell me if I'm right.
All right. So you want Oliveira KO at 8-1?
Yeah.
Okay. It is 62-1. 60 plus 62.
Yeah. 600 and plus 800.
Let's do it. That obviously not a full unit, maybe not even a quarter unit. If you're like me and responsible, Maddie will throw a band on it, I'm sure. if you have slips in two-leggers, I want to see that one in there for the show, okay? Oliveira KO, Jiří points.
I love that, dude. I really do.
Yeah.
How much do I have to bet on that to win $1 million?
Okay, let me take a look. 16 grand. 16 grand.
One more leg on there. Not for the show parlay. That's the show parlay. But
that's the show. Okay, so the show parlay: Jiří Procházka decision plus 600, Oliveira KO plus 800. But now we're gonna try to build.
Put $5,000 on the bet amount, and then add in Jamal Hill by KO and see what that pays.
No, you were leaning decision there, bro. You gotta trust your gut on one of these.
That was like a long shot thing.
What about Aljo's submission, which you were all over?
Just like put Jamal KO. I just want to see for $5,000.
Okay. Just as have a main event sweat instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Against a guy in Pereira whose chin has been questionable at times, and Jamal.
So Hill points is going to pay way more than like.
Of course.
Oh, okay, so Hill KO. Let's see, So $5,000 would pay $940,000, so almost $1 million.
$6,000 is $1 million, or $5,500. Probably $5,200 is probably $1 million.
Let's take. Yeah, it's $977. So $5,500 would pay $1.034 million.
Oh my God! Send me a screenshot of that, bro.
I don't know if I want to, Maddie.
Bro.
Should we just make that the official?
When I get to Vegas, I need to find out which books will take the exposure, because I'm not sure that everyone will take a payout on $1 million.
It's kind of
books, bro, that have disclaimers on different sports. Like for example, when I bet here in Florida at Hard Rock, NFL, NBA, there's like the big whatever amount of sports. Yeah, they take exposure up to $1 million. Then other sports it's like up to 250. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know, what books or what FanDuel is or what even in Vegas. I think I'll probably look at Circa. Circa has some good prices on exact outcomes in the UFC. Now, I will say the reason I love FanDuel the most for UFC is there's every offer impossible, and you get the inside the distance props. The inside the distance props are not available sometimes at like Circa, Hard Rock, all these other books. But I need to figure out when I land in Vegas where I'm putting that, because I told my audience I'm betting to win $1 million. I don't care.
So Matt,
house money the last 2 weeks. I'm betting to win $1 million. I feel like I'm destined to hit it, bro. I'm destined.
So yeah, Maddie, here in Colorado, my max wager on that parlay we cooked up is $187. So, well, when you're talking about limits, like, it also varies by state. So hopefully Maddie will be able to place his $1 million parlay. Hope you guys enjoyed breaking down all 13 fights with us. Maddie will release his full card into both the Home of Fight Discord as well as on social media, likely on Friday night, right? That's what the jam we've been working on these last few weeks. We don't want to mess up the mojo. Of course, my full written article, fanduel.com/research/UFC. It'll publish on Friday. My podcast as usual as well. A lot of places to find me, and then you can find my picks as well in the Home of Fight Discord too. So you can find us in a lot of different places. Hope you tail us. Hope we end up having a great night. UFC 300, it should be a special one. I know it's going to be a full out. When I get a special pay-per-view, bro, I know Domino's is going to be on the menu for me. That's just a tradition that I've had with my family's in-laws for years now. This is a special one. So we're going to have some crappy pizza on the menu, and I can't wait for it. Hope you enjoyed it from Vegas too, my guy. Safe travels. We will have a card next week, I believe. I think it's a really disappointing Apex card to come off the high of UFC 300. Okay, no, so it's in 2 weeks' time. So no show next week. Then we'll have UFC Apex, Nickal versus Perez at flyweight. I know you guys can't contain your excitement for that one. So in 2 weeks' time, you'll see us again. Thank you so much for tuning into an early edition of our show. We appreciate all the support. Like and subscribe to the Home of Fight YouTube channel. But until then, hope all your bets hit, and I hope next time we talk to you, Matty Tanner's a millionaire.